Hello, hello. Hi. Good to see people here. Welcome into the Bocord. Today I'm actually going to go ahead and finish doing some reading. So we're going to make sure that reading happens. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. We're going to finish up The Last Unicorn, hopefully with a bit of cozy ambience. If we do manage to finish up The Last Unicorn, we're going to move into playing a bit of Kingdom 2 Crowns today and hopefully go ahead and make more progress than I did last time. But we're going to do our very best to move on to the third island and hopefully the fourth, and then the fifth, and then all of the above. At the very least, the third is a goal. Naturally, that's if we finish the book today, which we've got 7 more chapters. We are almost halfway done. So I am more than happy to go ahead and move forward with reading. Outside of that, for the rest of the week, we do have a few other streams in the works. I am very, very excited to see what we're going to be doing. This coming Friday, around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we're actually going to be playing some modded repo, so I'm very excited about that. We're also going to be playing with a few new people as well as a few friends that I play with all the time, so it's going to be great. I'm definitely excited about it. After that, day 10th of May, that Saturday, we're going to be starting a new game. We're going to be playing Broken Age, which is another game by the same studio that actually did Grim Fandango, which we did a little while back. And I'm very excited to play this game. It's got amazing actors. It's got Elijah Wood in it as one of the protagonist characters. And boy, howdy, if I'm not a fan of classic fantasy actors that went on to do strange things. But it'll be super fun. I'm very excited about it. Moving forward, though, I'm ready to get comfy and cozy. Yeah, what do you guys say? A little bit more comfy, cozy, bit of extra bird song in the background, yeah? I think it'll be absolutely pleasant, and I have plenty of water, so we'll be keeping ourselves hydrated. Because goodness gracious, the steam engine needs water desperately, please. Okay, so last we left off, they had just barely gotten to, the sketchy town. We had just barely gotten to meet the Red Bull. They had just barely shown up. Um, and honestly, outside of that, we're hopping straight into chapter 8. It'll be absolutely fantastic. Let me adjust the microphone so I can read a bit more appropriately. Goodness, there we go. Okay. Moving on, I'm gonna go ahead and have it calm down just a bit. Hopefully the bird song isn't too overwhelming. Um, Outside of that, we don't want it to be too loud. We don't want it to be too quiet either. Oh, hello, kitty. We have dust there. Wonderful. Starting off with chapter 8. He was the color of blood, not the springing blood of the heart, but the blood that stirs under an old wound that never really healed. A terrible light poured from him like sweat, and his roar started landsliding, flowing into one another. His horns were as pale as scars. For one moment, the unicorn faced him, frozen as a wave about to break. Then the light of her horn went out, and she turned and fled. The Red Bull bellowed again and leaped down after her. The unicorn had never been afraid of anything. She was immortal, but she could be killed by a harpy, by a dragon or a chimera, by a stray arrow loosed at a squirrel. But dragons could only kill her. They could never make her forget what she was, or themselves forget that they even. Whoa, goodness, what? Is this a misprint? Or themselves forget that even dead she would still be more beautiful than they. Nope, I misread it. The Red Bull did not know her, and yet she could feel that it was herself he sought, and no white mare. Fear blew her dark then, and she ran away while the bull's raging ignorance filled the sky and spilled over into the valley. The trees lunged at her, and she veered wildly among them. She who slipped so softly through eternity without bumping into anything. Behind her, they were breaking like glass in the rush of the Red Bull. He roared once again, and a great branch clubbed her on the shoulder so hard that she staggered and fell. She was up immediately, but now roots humped under her feet as she ran, and others burrowed as busily as moles to cut across the path. Vines struck at her like strangling snakes. Creepers wove webs between the trees. Dead boughs crashed all around her. She fell a second time. The bull's hooves on the earth boomed through her bones, and she cried out. She must have found some way out of the trees, for she was running on the hard, bald plain that lay beyond the prosperous pasture lands of Hagsgate. Now she had room to race, and a unicorn is only lopping when she leaves the hunter kicking his bust and sinking horse. She moved with the speed of life, winking from one body to another or running down a sword, swifter than anything burdened with legs or wings, yet without looking back, she knew that the Red Bull was gaining on her. Coming like the moon, the sullen, swollen hunter's moon, she could feel the shock of the livid horns in her side, as though he had already struck. Ripe, sharp cornstalks leaned together to make a hedge at her breast, but she trampled them down. Silver wheat fields turned cold and gummy when the bull breathed on them. They dragged at her legs like snow. Still she ran, bleeding and defeated, hearing the butterflies' icy chiming. They passed down all the roads long ago, and the Red Bull ran close behind them. He had killed them all. Suddenly, the bull was facing her, as though he had been lifted like a chess piece, swooped through the air, and set down again to bar her way. He did not charge immediately, and she did not run. He had been huge when she first fled him, but in the pursuit he had grown so vast that she could not imagine all of him. Now he seemed to curve with the curve of the bloodshot sky, his legs like great whirlwinds, his head rolling like the northern lights. His nostrils wrinkled and rumbled as he searched for her, and the unicorn realized that the Red Bull was blind. If he had rushed her then, she would have met him, tiny and despairing, with her darkened horn, even though he stamped her to pieces. He was swifter than she, better to face him now than to be caught running. But the bull advanced slowly, with a kind of sinister daintiness, as though he were trying not to frighten her, and again she broke before him. With a low, sad cry, she whirled and ran back the way she had come, back through the tattered fields and over the plain towards King Haggard's castle, dark and hunched as ever, and the Red Bull went after her, following her fear. Hi, welcome in, Jesse. Good to see you, my friend. Hello, happy story time. Yeah, happy story time. We're crying though. Our poor unicorn friend is terrified of the Red Bull. It's gonna be good though. Smendrick and Molly had been spun away like chips when the bull went by. Molly slammed breathless and witless against the ground, and the magician hurled into a tangle of thorns that cost him half his cloak and an eighth of his skin. They got up when they could and went limping in pursuit, leaning on one another. Neither one said a word. The way through the trees was easier for them than the unicorn had found it, for the Red Bull had been there since. Molly and the magician scrambled over great tree trunks, not only smashed, but trodden halfway into the ground, and dropped to hands and knees to crawl around crevices they could not fathom in the dark. No hooves could have made these, Molly thought dazedly. The earth had torn itself, shrinking from the burden of the bull. She thought of the unicorn, and her heart paled. When they came out on the plain, they saw her, far and faint, a tuft of white water on the wind, almost invisible in the glare of the Red Bull. Molly grew, a little crazy with weariness and fear, saw them moving the way stars and stones move through space, forever falling, forever following, forever alone. The Red Bull would never catch the unicorn. not until now, caught up with the new, bygone with begin. Molly smiled serenely, but the blazing shadow loomed over the unicorn until the bull seemed to be all around her. She reared, swerved, and sprang away in another direction, only to meet the bull there, his head lowered and his jaws drooling thunder. Again she turned, and again, backing and sliding, making crafty little dashes to this side or that, and each time the Red Bull headed her off by standing still. He did not attack, but he left her no way to go, save one. He's driving her, Schmendrick said quietly. If he wanted to kill her, he could have done it by now. He's driving her the way he drove the others. To the castle, to Haggard. I wonder why. Molly said, "Do something!" Her voice was strangely calm and casual, and the magician answered her in the same tone. "There is nothing I can do." The unicorn fled once more, pitifully tireless, and the Red Bull let her have room to run, but none to turn. When she faced him for a third time, she was close enough for Molly to see her hind legs shivering like those of a frightened dog. Now she set herself to stand, pawing the ground wickedly and laying back her small, lean ears. But she could make no sound, and her horn did not grow bright again. She cowered when the Red Bull's bellow made the sky ripple and crack, and yet she did not back away. "Please," Molly Grew said, "please do something." Schmendrick turned on her, and his face was wild with helplessness. "What can I do? What can I do with my magic? Hat tricks, penny tricks, or the one where I scramble stones to make you an omelet? Would that entertain the Red Bull, do you think, or shall I try the trick with the singing oranges? I'll try whatever you suggest, for I would certainly be happy to be of some practical use." Molly did not answer him. The bull came on, and the unicorn crouched lower and lower until she seemed about to snap in two. Schmendrick said, "I know what to do. If I could, I'd change her into some other creature, some beast too humble for the bull to be concerned with. But only a great magician, a wizard like Nikos, who was my teacher, would have that kind of power. To transform a unicorn, anyone who could do that could juggle the seasons and shuffle years like playing cards. And I have no more power than you have. Less, for you can touch her, and I cannot." Then he said suddenly, "Look, it's over." The unicorn was standing very still before the Red Bull, her head down and her whiteness drabbled to a soapy gray. She looked gaunt and small, and even Molly, who loved her, could not keep from seeing that a unicorn is an absurd animal when the shining has gone out of her. Tail like a lion's tail, deer legs, goat feet, the mane cold and fine as foam over my hand, the charred horn, the eyes. Oh, the eyes. Molly took hold of Schmendrick's arm and dug her nails into it as hard as she could. "You have magic," she said. She heard her own voice, as deep and clear as a sibyl's. "Maybe you can't find it, but it's there. You called upon Robin Hood, and there is no Robin Hood. But he came, and he was real, and that is magic. You have all the power you need if you dare to look for it." Schmendrick regarded her in silence, staring as hard as though his green eyes were beginning to search for his magic in Molly Grew's eyes. The bull stepped lightly towards the unicorn, no longer pursuing, but commanding her with the weight of his presence, and she moved ahead of him, docile, obedient. He followed like a sheepdog, guiding her in the direction of King Haggard's jagged tower and the sea. "Oh, please," Molly's voice was crumbling now. "Please, it's not fair. It can't be happening. He'll drive her to Haggard, and no one will ever see her again. No one. Please, you're a magician. You won't let him." Her fingers struck even deeper into Schmendrick's arm. "Do something," she wept. "Don't let him. Please, do something." Schmendrick was prying futilely at her clenched fingers. "I'm not going to do a damned thing," he said through his teeth, "until you let go of my arm." "Oh," Molly said, I'm sorry." "You can cut off the circulation like that, you know," the magician said severely. He rubbed his arm and took a steps forward into the path of the Red Bull. There he stood with his arms folded and his head high, though it drooped now and then because he was very tired. "Maybe this time," Molly heard him mutter. "Maybe this time," Nico said. What was it that Nico said? I don't remember, it's been so long. There was an odd, old sorrow in his voice that Molly had never heard before. The gaiety leaped up like a flame as he said, "Well, who knows, who knows. If this is not the time, perhaps I can make it so. There's this much of a comfort, friend Schmendrick. For once, I don't see how you can possibly make things any worse than they already are." And he laughed softly. The Red Bull, being blind, took no notice of the tall figure in the road until he was almost upon it. Then he halted, sniffing the air, storm stirring in his throat, but a certain confusion showing in the swing of his great head. The unicorn stopped when he stopped, and Schmendrick's breath broke to see her so trackable. "Run," he called to her. "Run now." But she never looked at him, or back at the bull, or at anything but the ground. At the sound of Schmendrick's voice, the bull's rumble grew louder and more menacing. He seemed eager to be out of the valley with the unicorn, and the magician thought he knew why. Beyond the towering brightness of the Red Bull, he could see 2 or 3 sallow stars and a cautious hint of a warmer light. Dawn was near. He doesn't care for daylight, Schmendrick said to himself. That's worth knowing. Once more he shouted to the unicorn to fly, but his only answer came in the form of a roar like a drum roll. The unicorn bolted forward, and Schmendrick had to spring out of her way, or she would have run him down. Close behind her came the bull, driving her swiftly now, as the wind drives the thin, torn mist. The power of his passage picked Schmendrick up and dropped him elsewhere, tumbling and rolling to keep from being trampled, his eyes jarred blind and his head full of flames. He thought he heard Molly Grew scream. Scrambling to one knee, he saw the Red Bull had herded the unicorn almost to the beginning of the trees, if she would only try one more time to escape. But she was the bull's, and not her own. The magician had one glimpse of her, pale and lost between the pale horns, before the wild red shoulders surged across his sight. Then, swaying and sick and beaten, he closed his eyes and let his hopelessness march through him, until something woke somewhere that had wakened in him once before. He cried aloud for fear and joy. What words the magic spoke this second time he never knew surely. They left him like eagles, and he let them go. And when the last one was away, the emptiness rushed back, and a thunderclap that threw him on his face. It happened as quickly as that. This time, he knew before he picked himself up that the power had been and gone. Ahead, the Red Bull was standing still, nosing at something on the ground. Schmendrick could not see the unicorn. He went forward as fast as he could, but it was Molly who first drew near enough to see what the bull was sniffing. She put her fingers in her mouth like a child. At the feet of the Red Bull, there lay a young girl, spilled into a very small heap of light and shadow. She was naked, and her skin was the color of snow by moonlight. Fine, tangled hair, white as a waterfall, came down almost to the small of her back. Her face was hidden in her arms. "Oh," said Molly. "Oh, what have you done?" And heedless of any danger, she ran to the girl and knelt beside her. The Red Bull raised his huge, blind head and swung it slowly in Schmendrick's direction. He seemed to be waning and fading as the gray sky grew light, though he still smolders as savagely bright as crawling lava.
The magician wondered what his true size was, and his color when he was alone. Once more the Red Bull sniffled at the still form, stirring it with his freezing breath. Then, without a sound, he bounded away into the trees and was gone from sight in 3 gigantic strides. Schmendrick had a last vision of him as he gained the rim of the valley. No shape at all, but a swirling darkness, the red darkness you see when you close your eyes in pain. The horns had become 2 sharpest towers of old King Haggard's crazy castle. Molly Grew had taken the white girl's head over her lap and was whispering over and over, "What have you done?" The girl's face, quiet in sleep and close to smiling, was the most beautiful that Schmendrick had ever seen. It hurt him and warmed him at the same time. Molly smoothed the strange hair, and Schmendrick noted on the forehead, above and between the closed eyes, a small and raised mark, darker than the rest of the skin. It was neither a scar nor a bruise. It looked like a flower. "What do you mean, what have I done?" he demanded of the moaning Molly. "Only saved her from the bull by magic, that's what I've done. By magic, woman, by my own true magic." Now he was helpless with delight, for he wanted to dance and he wanted to be still. He shook with shouting and speechless, and yet there was nothing that he wanted to say. He ended by laughing foolishly, hugging himself until he gasped, and sprawling down beside Molly as his legs let go. "Give me your cloak," Molly said. The magician beamed at her, blinking. She reached over and ungently pulled the shredded cloak from his shoulders. Then she wrapped it around the sleeping girl, as much as it would wrap. The girl shone through it like the sun through leaves. "Doubtless you are wondering how I plan to return her to her proper shape," Schmendrick offered. "Wonder not, the power will come to me when I need it. I know that much now. One day it will come when I call, but that time is not yet." Impulsively, he seized Molly Grew, hugging her head in his long arms. "But you were right," he cried. "You were right. It is there, and it is mine." Molly pulled away from him, one cheek ruffed red and both ears mashed. The girl sighed in her lap, ceased to smile, turned her face from the sunrise. Molly said, "Schmendrick, you poor man, you magician, don't you see?" "See what? There is nothing to see." But his voice was suddenly hard and wary, and the green eyes were beginning to be frightened. "The Red Bull came for a unicorn, so she had to become something else. You begged me to change her. What is it frets you now?" "Oh, mages! Hi! Hello, hello, welcome in. We are reading today, so it's cozy. We've got plenty of cozy birdsong, and our poor unicorn is not a unicorn anymore. I don't know how well this is going to go over. I hope you're doing well. Chill vibes? Yes, chill vibes. I'm living for it. It's relaxing. So please feel free to stay a while. Lurk, don't lurk. If you need to dip or do anything after you've taken care of yourself or done work or streamed or edited videos, please feel free to. We'll be glad to go ahead and have you, as long as you are willing to stay. While I do have you, and while I'm at a paragraph break, I am going to have some water. Ah, thank goodness. Ugh, okay. There we go. Okay, water. Yes, exactly. We need a bit of water, don't we? Okay, moving forward onto our paragraph next. Molly shook her head in the wavering way of an old woman. She said, "I didn't know you meant to turn her into a human girl. You would have done better." She did not finish, but looked away from him. One hand continued to stroke the white girl's hair. "The magic chose the shape, not I," Schmendrick answered. "A mountebank may select this cheat or that, but a magician is a porter, a donkey carrying his master where he must. The magician calls, but the magic chooses. If it changes a unicorn to a human being, then that was the only thing to do. His face was fevered, with an ardent delirium which made him look even younger. I am a bearer, he sang. I am a dwelling, I am a messenger. You are an idiot, Molly Grew said fiercely. Do you hear me? You're a magician, all right, but you're a stupid magician. But the girl was trying to wake, her hands opening and closing, and her eyelids beating like bird's breast. Molly and Schmendrick looked on. The girl made a soft sound and opened her eyes. They were farther apart than common, and somewhat deeper set, and they were as dark as the deep sea, and illuminated like the sea by a strange, glimmering creatures that never rise to the surface. The unicorn could have been transformed into a lizard, Molly thought, or into a shark, a snail, a goose, and somehow, still, her eyes would have given the change away. To me, anyways. I would know. The girl lay without moving, her eyes finding herself in Molly's eyes, and in Schmendrick's. Then, in one motion, she was on her feet, the black cloak falling back across Molly's lap. For a moment, she turned in a circle, staring at her hands, which she held high and useless, close to her breast. She bobbed and shambled like an ape doing a trick, and her face was the silly, bewildered face of a joker's victim. And yet she could make no move that was not beautiful. Her trapped terror was more lovely than any joy that Molly had ever seen, and that was the most terrible thing about it. Donkey, Molly said. Messenger. I can change her back, the magician answered hoarsely. Don't worry about it, I can change her back. Shining in the sun, the white girl hobbled to and fro on her strawed young legs. She stumbled suddenly and fell, and it was a bad fall because she did not know how to catch herself with her hands. Molly flew to her, but the girl crouched on the ground, staring, and spoke in a low voice. What have you done to me? Molly Grew began to cry. Schmendrick came forward, his face cold and wet, but his voice level. I turned you into a human being to save you from the Red Bull. There was nothing else I could do. I will turn you to yourself again as soon as I can. The Red Bull, the girl whispered. Ah, she was trembling wildly, as though something were shaking and hammering at her skin from within. He was too strong, she said. Too strong. There was no end to his strength and no beginning. He's older than I. Her eyes widened, and it seemed to Molly that the bull moved in them, crossing their depths like a flaming fish and vanishing. The girl began to touch her face timidly, recoiling from the feel of her own features. Her curled fingers brushed the mark on her forehead, and she closed her eyes and gave a thin, stabbing howl of loss and weariness and utter despair. What have you done to me? She cried. I will die here. She tore at the smooth body, and blood followed her fingers. I will die here. I will die here. Yet there was no fear in her face, though it ramped in her voice, in her hands and feet, in the white hair that fell down over her new body. Her face remained quiet and untroubled. Molly huddled over her, as near as she dared, my bad, begging her not to hurt herself. But Schmendrick said, Be still. And the two words cracked like autumn branches, he said. The magic knew what it was doing. Be still and listen. Why did you not let the bull kill me? The white girl moaned. Why did you not leave me to the harpy? That would have been kinder than closing me in this cage. The magician winced, remembering Molly Grew's mocking accusation, but he spoke with a desperate calmness. In the first place, it's quite an attractive shape, he said. You couldn't have done much better and still remained human. She looked at herself, sideways at her shoulders and along her arms, then down her scratched and welting body. She stood on one foot to expect the soul of the other, cocked her eyes up to see the silver brows, squinted down her cheeks to catch a flash of her nose, and even peered closely at the sea-green veins inside her wrists, themselves as gaily made as young otters. At last, she turned her face to the magician, and again he caught his breath. I have made magic, he thought, but sorrow winked sharp in his throat like a fish-hook setting fast. All right, he said. It would make no difference to you if I had changed you into a rhinoceros, which is where the whole silly myth got started. But in this guise, you have some chance of reaching King Haggard and finding out what becomes of your people. As a unicorn, you would only suffer their fate, unless you think you could defeat the bull if you met him a second time. The white girl shook her head. No, she answered. Never. Another time I would not stand so long. Her voice was too soft, as though its bones had been broken. She said, My people are gone, and I will follow them soon, whatever shape you trap me in. But I would have chosen any other than this for my prison. A rhinoceros is as ugly as a human being, and it too is going to die, but at least it never thinks that it is beautiful. No, it never thinks that, the magician agreed. That's why it goes on being a rhinoceros and will never be welcome, even at Haggard's court. But a girl to whom it can never mean anything that she is not a rhinoceros, such a girl, while the king and his son seek to solve her, might unravel her own riddle until she comes to its end. Rhinoceri are not questing beasts, but young girls are. The sky was hot and curdled. The sun had already melted into a lion-colored puddle, and on the plain of Hagsgate nothing stirred but the stake and stale heavy wind. The naked girl with the flower mark on her forehead stared silently at the green-eyed man, and the woman watched them both. In the tawny morning, King Haggard's castle seemed neither dark nor accursed, but merely grimy, run down, and poorly designed. Its skinny spires looked nothing like a bull's horns, but rather like those on a jester's cap. Or like the horns of a dilemma, Schmendrick thought. They never have just two. The white girl said, I am myself still. This body is dying. I can feel it rotting all around me. How can anything that is going to die be real? How can it be truly beautiful? Molly Grew put the magician's cloak around her shoulders again, not for modesty or seemliness, but out of a strange pity, as though to keep her from seeing herself. I will tell you a story, Schmendrick said. As a child, I was apprenticed to the mightiest magician of all, the great Nikos, whom I have spoken of before. But even Nikos, who could turn cats into cattle, snowflakes into snowdrops, and unicorns into men, could not change me into so much as a carnival card sharp. At last he said to me, My son, your ineptitude is so vast, your incompetence so profound, that I am certain you are inhabited by greater power than I have ever known. Unfortunately, it seems to be working backward at the moment, and even I can find no way to set it right. It must be that you are meant to find your own way to reach your power in time. But frankly, you should live so long as that will take you. Therefore, I grant it that you shall not age from this day forth, but will travel the world round and round, eternally inefficient, until at last you come to yourself and know what you are. Don't thank me. I tremble at your doom. The white girl regarded him out of the unicorn's clear, amaranthine eyes, gentle and frightening in the unused face, but she said nothing. It was Molly Grew who asked, And if you should find your magic, what then? Then the spell will be broken, and I will begin to die, as I begin at my birth. Even the greatest wizards grow old like other men and die. He swayed and nodded and then snapped awake again, a tall, thin, shabby man, smelling of dust and drink. I told you that I was older than I look, he said. I was born mortal, and I have been immortal for a long, foolish time, and one day I will be mortal again, so I know something that a unicorn cannot know. Whatever can die is beautiful, more beautiful than a unicorn who lives forever, and who is the most beautiful creature in the world. Do you understand me?
No.
She said. The magician smiled wearily in response. You will. You're in the story with the rest of us now, and you must go with it whether you will or no. If you want to find your people, if you want to become a unicorn again, then you must follow the fairy tale to King Haggard's castle, and wherever else it chooses to take you. The story cannot end without the princess. The white girl said, I will not go. She stepped away, her body wary and the cold hair falling down. She said, I am no princess, no mortal, and I will not go. Nothing but evil has happened to me since I left my forest, and nothing but evil can have become of the unicorns in this country. Give me my true shape again, and I will return to my trees, to my pool, to my own place. Your tail has no power over me. I am a unicorn. I am the last unicorn. Had she said that once before, long ago, in the blue-green silence of the trees? Schmendrick continued to smile, but Molly Grew said, Change her back. You said you could change her. Let her go home. I cannot, the magician answered. I told you, the magic is not mine to command, not yet. That is why I too must go on to the castle, and the fate or fortune that waits there. If I tried to undo the transformation now, I might actually turn her into a rhinoceros. That would be the best thing that could happen. As for the worst, he shivered and fell silent. The girl turned from them and looked away at the castle, and then stooped over the valley. She could see no movement at any window or among the tottering tourniquets, or any sign of the Red Bull. Yet she knew that he was there, brooding at the castle's roots till night should fall again, strong beyond strength, invincible as the night itself. For a second time, she touched the place on her forehead where her horn had been. When she turned again, they were asleep where they sat, the man and the woman. Their heads were pillowed on air, and their mouths hung open. She stood by them, watching them breathe, one hand holding the black cloak closed at her throat. Very faintly, for the first time, the smell of the sea came to her. Chapter 9. The sentinels saw them coming a little before sunset, when the sea was flat and blinding. The sentinels were pacing the second tallest of the many awry towers that sprounced up from the castle and made it resemble one of those odd trees that grow with their roots in the air. From where they stood, the two men could survey the entire valley of Hagsgate as far as the town and the sharp hills beyond, as well as the road that ran from the rim of the valley to the great, though sagging, front grate of King Haggard's castle. A man and two women, said the first sentinel. He hurried to the far side of the tower. A stomach-startling motion, since the tower tilted so that half of the sentinel's sky was sea. The castle sat on the edge of a cliff, which dropped like a knife blade to a thin yellow shore, frayed bare over green and black rocks. Soft, baggy birds squatted on the rocks, snickering, side so, side so. The second man followed his comrade across the tower at an easier pace. He said, A man and a woman, the third one in the cloak. I'm not certain of the third. Both men were clad in homemade mail, rings, bottle caps, and links of chain sewn into half-cured hides. Half-cured hides. Oh God, I can read today, I promise. Half-cured hides, and their faces were invisible behind rusted visors. But the second sentinel's voice and gait alike marked him as the elder. The one in the black cloak, he said again. Do not be too sure of that one too soon. But the first sentinel leaned out into the orange glare of the tipped-up sea, scraping a few studs loose from his poor armor on the parapet. It is a woman, he declared. I would doubt my own sex before hers. And well you may, the other observed, sardonically, since you do nothing that becomes a man but ride a straddle. I warn you again, be slow to call that third, male or female. Wait a little and see what you see. The first sentinel answered him without turning. If I had grown up never dreaming that there were two separate secrets in the world, if I had taken every woman I met to be exactly like myself, still I would know that this creature was different from anything I had ever seen before. I have always been sorry that I'd never pleased you, but now, when I look at her, I am sorry that I have never pleased myself. Oh, I am sorry. He bent still further over the wall, straining his eyes towards the three slow figures on the road. A chuckle clattered behind his visor. The other woman looks sore-footed and bad-tempered, he reported. The man appears amiable, an amiable sort, though plainly of the strolling life. A minstrel, like enough, or a player. He said nothing more for a long while, watching them draw nearer. And the third? The older man inquired presently. Your sundown fancy with the interesting hair? Have you outworn her in a quarter of an hour? Already seen her closer than love dares? His voice rustled in his helmet like small clawed feet. I don't think I could ever see her closely, the sentinel replied. However close she came. His own voice was hushed and regretful, echoing with lost chances. She has a newness, he said. Everything is for the first time. See how she moves, how she walks, how she turns her head. All for the first time anyone has ever done these things. See how she draws her breath and lets it go again, as though no one else in the world knew that air was good. It is all for her. If I learned that she had been born this very morning, I would only be surprised that she was so old. The second sentinel stared down from his tower at the three wanderers. The tall man saw him first, and next the dour woman. Their eyes reflected nothing but his armor, grim and cankered and empty. But then the girl in the ruined black cloak raised her head, and he stepped back from the parapet, putting out one tin glove against her glance. In a moment she passed into the shadow of the castle with her companions, and he lowered his hands. She may be mad, he said calmly. No grown girl looks like that unless she is mad. That would be annoying, but far preferable to the remaining possibility. Which is? The younger man promoted and prompted after a silence. Which is that she was indeed born this morning. I would rather that she were mad. Let us go down now. When the man and the woman reached the castle, the two sentries were standing on either side of the gate, their blunt, bent halberds crossed, and their falchions hitched round in front of them. The sun had gone down, and their absurd armor grew steadily more menacing as the sea faded. The travelers hesitated, looking at one another. They had no dark castle at their backs, and their eyes were not hidden. Give your names, said the parched voice of the second sentinel. The tall man stepped a pace forward. I am Schmendrick, the magician, he said. This is Molly Grew, my helper. And this is the Lady Amalthea. He stumbled over the name of the white girl, as though he had never before spoken it. We seek audience with King Haggard, he continued. We have come a long way to see him. The second sentinel waited for the first to speak, but the younger man was looking only at the Lady Amalthea. Impatiently, he said, State your business with King Haggard. I will, the magician replied, to Haggard himself. What kind of royal matter could it be that I might confide to doormen and porters? Take us to the king. What kind of royal matter could a wandering wizard with a foolish tongue have to discuss with King Haggard? The second sentinel asked somberly, but he turned and strode through the castle gate, and the king's visitor straggled after him. Last wandered the younger sentinel, his step grown as tender as that of the Lady Amalthea, whose every movement he imitated unaware. She stayed a moment before the gate, looking out to sea, and the sentinel did the same. His former comrade called angrily to him, but the young sentry was on a different duty, answerable to a new captain for his derelictions. I can talk. Oh God, I'm sorry. Ugh. He entered at the gate only after the Lady Amalthea had chosen to go in. Then he followed, singing to himself in a dreamy drone. What is it that is happening to me? What is it that is happening to me? I cannot tell whether to be glad or be afraid. What is it that is happening to me? They crossed a cobbled courtyard where cold laundry groped their faces and passed through a smaller door into a hall so vast that they could not see the walls or the ceiling in the darkness. Great stone pillars rushed up to them as they trudged across the hall, and then leaned away without ever really letting themselves be seen. Breath echoed in that huge place, and the footsteps of other, smaller creatures sounded just as clearly as their own. Molly Grew stayed quite close to Smendrick. After the great hall, there came another door, and then a thin stair. There were few windows and no lights. The stair coiled tighter and tighter as it ascended, until it seemed that every step turned round on itself, and that the tower was closing on them all like a sweaty fist. The darkness looked at them and touched them. It had a rainy, doggy smell. Something rumbled somewhere deep and near. The tower trembled like a ship run aground, and answered with a low stone wail. The three travelers cried out, scrambling to keep their feet on the shuddering stairs, but their guide pressed on without faltering or speaking. The younger man whispered earnestly to the Lady Amalthea, "It's all right. Don't be afraid. It's just the bull." The sound was not repeated. The second sentinel halted abruptly, produced a key from a secret place, and jabbed it, apparently, straight into the blank wall. A section of the wall swung inward, and the small procession filed into a low, narrow chamber with one window and a chair at the far end. There was nothing else. No other furnishings, no rug, no draperies, no tapestries. In the room were 5 people, the tall chair, and the mealy light of the rising new moon. "This is King Haggard's throne room," said the sentinel. The magician gripped him by his mailed elbow and turned him until they faced each other. "This is a cell. This is a tomb. No living king sits here. Take us to Haggard if he is alive." "You must judge that for yourself," replied the scurrying voice of the sentinel. He unlaced his helmet and lifted it from his gray head. "I am King Haggard," he said. His eyes were the same color as the horns of the red bull. He was taller than Schmendrick, and though his face was bitterly lined, there was nothing fond or foolish in it. It was a pike's face, the jaws long and cold, the cheeks hard, the lean neck alive with power. He might have been 70 years old, or 80, or more. The first sentinel came forward now, with his own helmet under his arm. Molly Grew gasped when she saw his face, for it was the friendly, rumpled face of the young prince, who had read a magazine while his princess tried to call a unicorn. King Haggard said, "This is Lear." "Hi," said Prince Lear. "Glad to meet you." His smile wriggled at their feet like a hopeful puppy, but his eyes, a deep shadowy blue behind stubby lashes, rested quietly on the eyes of the Lady Amalthea. She looked back at him, silent as a jewel, seeing him no more truly than men see unicorns. But the prince felt strangely, happily certain that she had looked him round and through, and down into caverns that he had never known were there, where her glance echoed and sang. Prodigies began to waken somewhere southwest of his 12th rib, and he himself, still mirroring the Lady Amalthea, began to shine. "What is your concern with me?" Schmendrick, the magician, cleared his throat and bowed to the pale-eyed old man. "We seek to enter your service. Far and wide has the fabled court of King Haggard. I need no servants." The king turned away, his face and body suddenly slack with indifference, yet Schmendrick sensed a curiosity lingering in the stone-colored skin and at the roots of the gray hair. He said cautiously, But surely you keep some sweet, some following. Simplicity is the richest adornment for a king, I grant you, but for such a king as Haggard, you are losing my interest. The rustling voice interrupted him again. And that is very dangerous. In a moment, I will have forgotten you quite entirely, and will never be able to remember just what I did with you. What I forget not only ceases to exist, but never really existed in the first place. As he said this, his eyes, like those of his son, turned to meet the Lady Amalthea's eyes. My court, he continued, since you choose to call it that, consists of 4 men-at-arms. I would do without them if I could, for they cost more than they are worth, like everything else. But they take their turns as sentries, and as cooks, and they give the appearance of an army from a distance. What other attendants should I need? But the pleasures of court, the magician cried, the music, the talk, the women and the fountains, the hunts and the masks and the great feasts, they are nothing to me, King Haggard said. I have known them all, and they have not made me happy. I will keep nothing near me that does not make me happy. The Lady Amalthea moved quietly past him to the window and looked out at the night sea. Schmendrick came about to catch the wind again and declared, I understand you perfectly. How weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to you all the uses of this world. You are bored with bliss, satiated with sensation, jaded with jejune joys. It is a king's affliction, and therefore no one wants the services of a magician more than a king does. For only to a magician is the world forever fluid, infinitely mutable, and eternally new. Only he knows the secret of change. Only he knows truly that all things are crouched in eagerness to become something else. And it is from this universal tension that he draws his power. To a magician, March is May, snow is green, and grass is he chooses a tone of genial amusement. As your majesty wills it, now and always, he purred. But perhaps your majesty might be interested in learning a bit of the history of his new magician. I'm sure dear Schmendrick won't mind mentioning that he is already something of a legend in the trade. Indeed, among adepts he is best remembered as Nico's Folly. His charming and complete inability to master the simplest rune, his creative way with the most childish rhyme of theurgy, let alone King Haggard made a thin motion with the edge of one hand. And Mabrook was silently and suddenly silent. Prince Lear giggled. The king said, I do not need to be persuaded of his unfitness for the position. A single glance at him tells me that, and a glance makes it plain that you are one of the great wizards of the world. Mabrook swelled gently, fondling his glorious beard and wrinkling his benign brow. But that also is nothing to me. King Haggard went on, in the past you have performed whatever miracle I required of you, and all it has done has begun to spoil my taste for miracles. No task is too vast for your powers, and yet, when the wonder is achieved, nothing has changed. It must be that great power cannot give me whatever it is that I really want. A master magician has not made me happy. I will see what an incompetent one can do. You may go, Mabrook. He nodded his head to dismiss the old wizard. Mabrook's semblance of affability vanished like a spark on snow, and with the same sound, his whole face became like his eyes. I am not packed off as easily as that, he said very softly. Not on a whim, even a king's whim, and not in favor of a fool. Beware, Haggard. Mabrook is no one to anger lightly. A wind began to rise in the dark chamber. It came as much from one place as another, through the window, through the half-open door, but its true source was the clenched figure of the wizard. The wind was cold and rank, a wet, hooty marsh wind. It leapt here and there in the room like a gleeful animal discovering the flimsiness of human beings. Molly Grew shrank against Schmendrick, who looked uncomfortable. Prince Lear fidgeted his sword in and out of its sheath. Even King Haggard gave back a step before the triumphant grin of old Maverick. The walls of the room seemed to thaw and run away, and the wizard's starry gown became the huge, howling night. Maverick spoke no word himself, but the wind was beginning to make a wicked, grunting sound as it gained strength. In another moment, it would become visible, burst into shape. Schmendrick opened his mouth, but if he were shouting a counter spell, it could not be heard, and it did not work. In the darkness, Molly Grew saw the Lady Amalthea turning far away, stretching out a hand on which the ring and middle fingers were of equal length. The strange place on her forehead was glowing as bright as a flower. Then the wind was gone, as though it had never been, and the stone walls were around them once more, the dull chamber as gay as noon after Maverick's night. The wizard was crouched almost to the floor, staring at the Lady Amalthea. His wise, benevolent face looked like the face of a drowned man, and his beard dripped thinly from his chin, like a stagnant water. Prince Lear took him by the arm. "Come on, old man," he said, not unkindly. "This way out, Grandad. I'll write you a reference." "I am going," Maverick said. "Not from fear of you, you lump of stale dough, nor of your mad, ungrateful father, nor of your new magician. Much happiness may you have of him." His eyes met King Haggard's hungry eyes, and he laughed like a goat. "Haggard, I would not be you for all the world," he declared. "You have let your doom in by the front door, though it will not depart that way. I would explain myself more fully, but I am no longer in your service. That is a pity, for there will come a time when none but a master will be able to save you, and in the hour you will have Schmendrick to call upon. Farewell, poor Haggard, farewell." Still laughing, he disappeared, but his mirth dwelled forever in the corners of that chamber, like the smell of smoke or of old cold dust. "Well," said King Haggard in the grey moonlight. "Well." He came slowly towards Schmendrick and Molly, his feet silent, his head weaving, almost playfully. "Stand still," he commanded when they moved. "I want to see your faces." His breath rasped like a knife on a grindstone as he peered from one of them to the other. "Closer," he grumbled, squinting through the dark. "Come closer, closer. I want to see you." "Then a light, then," said Molly Grew. The calmness of her own voice frightened her more than the fury of the old wizard had. It is easy to be brave for her sake, she thought, but if I begin being brave of my own account, where will it end? "I never light lights," the king replied. "What is the good of light?" He turned from them, muttering to himself. One face is almost guileless, almost foolish, but not quite foolish enough. The other is a face like my face, and that must mean danger. Yet I saw all that at the gate. Why did I let them enter, then? Maverick was right. I have grown old and daft and easy. Still, I see only Haggard when I look in their eyes. Prince Lear stirred nervously as the king paced across the throne room towards the Lady Amalthea. She was again gazing out of the window, and King Haggard had drawn very near before she wheeled swiftly, lowering her head in a curious manner. "I will not touch you," he said, and she stood still. "Why do you linger at the window?" he demanded. "What are you looking at?" "I'm looking at the sea," said the Lady Amalthea. Her voice was low and tremorous, not with fear, but with life, as a new butterfly shivers in the sun. "Ah," the king said. "Yes, the sea is always good. There is nothing that I can look at for very long, except the sea." Yet he stared at the Lady Amalthea's face for a long time, his own face giving back none of her light, as Prince Lear's had, but taking it in and keeping it somewhere. His breath was as musty as the wizard's wind, but the Lady Amalthea never moved. Suddenly he shouted, "What is the matter with your eyes? They are full of green leaves, crowded with trees and streams and small animals. Where am I? Why can I not see myself in your eyes?" The Lady Amalthea did not answer him. King Haggard swung around to face Schmendrick and Molly. His scimitar smile laid its cold edge along their throats. "Who is she?" he demanded. Schmendrick coughed several times. "The Lady Amalthea is my niece," he offered. "I am her only living relative, and so her guardian. No doubt the state of her attire puzzles you, but it is easily explained. On our journey, we were attacked by bandits and robbed of all our—" "What nonsense are you jabbering? What about her attire?" The king turned again to regard the white girl, and Schmendrick suddenly understood that neither King Haggard nor his son had noticed that she was naked under the rags of his cloak. The Lady Amalthea held herself so gracefully that she made shreds and tatters seem the only fitting dress for a princess. And besides, she did not know that she was naked. It was the armored king who seemed bare before her. King Haggard said, "What she wears, what may have befallen you, what you all are to one another, these things are fortunately no concern of mine. In such matters, you may lie to me as much as you dare. I want to know who she is. I want to know how she broke Mabrook's magic without saying a word. I want to know why there are green leaves and fox cubs in her eyes. Speak quickly and avoid the temptation to lie, especially about the green leaves. Answer me." Schmendrick did not reply quickly. He made a few small sounds of an earnest nature, but not a sensible word was among them. Molly gathered her courage to answer, even though she suspected that it was impossible to speak the truth to King Haggard. Something in his winter presence blighted all words, tangled meanings, and bent honest intentions into shapes as tormented as the towers of his castle. Still, she would have spoken, but another voice was heard in the gloomy chamber, the light, kind, and silly voice of the young Prince Lear. "Father, what difference does it make? She's here now." King Haggard sighed. It was not a gentle sound, but low and scraping. Not a sound of surrender, but the rumbling meditation of a tiger taught to spring. "Of course, you are right," he said. "She is here, they are all here, and whether they mean my doom or not, I will look at them for a while. A pleasant air of a disaster attends them. Perhaps that is what I want." To Schmendrick he said curtly, "As my magician, you will entertain me when I wish to be entertained, in manners variously profound and frivolous. You will be expected to know when you are required, and in what guise, for I cannot be forever identifying my moods and desires for your benefit. You will receive no wages, since that is certainly not what you came here for. As for your drab, your assistant, whatever you choose to call her, she will serve me also if she wishes to remain in my castle. From this evening, she is cook and maidservant together, scrubwoman and scullery maid as well." He paused, seemingly waiting for Molly to protest, but she only nodded. The moon had moved away from the window, but Prince Lear could see that the dark room was no darker for that. The cool brightness of the Lady Amalthea grew more slowly than had Mabrook's wind, but the prince understood quite well that it was far more dangerous. He wanted to write poems by that light, and he had never wanted to write poems before. "You may come and go as you please," said King Haggard to the Lady Amalthea. "It may have been foolish of me to admit you, but I am not so foolish as to forbid you this door or that. My secrets guard themselves. Will yours do the same? What are you looking at?" "I'm looking at the sea," the Lady Amalthea replied again. "Yes, the sea is always good," said the king. "We will look at it together one day." He walked slowly to the door. "It will be curious," he said, "to have a creature in the castle whose presence causes Lear to call me father for the first time since he was 5 years old. 6, said Prince Lear. I was 6. 5 or 6, the king said. It had stopped making me happy long before, and it does not make me happy now. Nothing has yet changed because she is here. He was gone almost as silently as Mabrook, and they heard his tin boots ticking on the stairs. Molly Grew went softly to the Lady Amalthea and stood by her at the window. "What is it?" she asked. "What do you see?" Schmendrick leaned on the throne, regarding Prince Lear with his long, green eyes. Away in the valley of Hagsgate, the cold roar sounded again. "I will find quarters for you," said Prince Lear. "Are you hungry? I'll get you something to eat. I know where there is some cloth, fine satin. You could make a dress." No one answered him. The heavy night swallowed his words, and it seemed to him that the Lady Amalthea neither heard nor saw him. She did not move, and yet he was certain that she was going away from him as he stood there, like the moon. "Let me help you," Prince Lear said. "What can I do for you? Let me help you."
Oh, he's baby. Prince Lear is baby boy baby. Oh my goodness. He is such a softie. Like, for reals. He's such a big, cozy softie. Like, oh my god, there's a pretty lady here. What am I supposed to do? And he just doesn't know what to do. Ever. It's adorable. He's like the newborn. He's like the child. He and the unicorn just, ugh. They both are so gentle. The way they are both described as creatures of light as well, even though you have good characters like Schmendrick's a little bit of a shithead to say the least. Molly is a good character, but she knows she's not perfect, and that's perfectly fine because it's suiting. It suits her very well. Having these two characters who are so aware of the darkness around them and that they stand out from that darkness be referred to as light so regularly, and having one of them drawn so readily towards the other, I think it's very charming. It's written very well. Anyways, water break. I need to hydrate. Ah, that was so good. Gosh gracious. Gosh gracious goodness. Jeez Louise. That's good stuff. Ugh. Okay, give me like 30 seconds away. Actually, let's go ahead and take a quick break because that is one of the longer chapters. We've got maybe another 100 pages or so. Yeah, about 115 pages. Ah, I slept in. No, it's okay, Kit. Don't worry about it. I just need to go ahead and do some insulin really quickly, so I have to step away for like 2 minutes, and then we will move forward to chapter 10. Despite having met our wonderful prince, and having our wonderful unicorn turned into a human. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get the jazz on for just a second, and naturally we'll keep the bird song going in just a bit. There we go. We'll go ahead and do that while I figure out where I set my insulin. Gosh. Oh my gosh, I have to grab more syringes from the medicine cabinet. Well, welcome back in. It's good to see you in, Kit. I'm sorry you slept in, but it's very nice to see you, my friend. Let's go ahead and pause for just a second. I am going to grab some medication because diabetes owns my soul and my life. Hooray. Doesn't have medical stuff. No, I know. Don't love medical stuff. I think lose medical stuff? Loose? Can I read? That text is so far away. Loose medical stuff. Yeah, no, don't lose medical stuff. I'm not going to lose it. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick, like, 2 or 3 minute breather. I'm gonna run and grab some medication, and I will be back. Woo! Boy, howdy. Guess who's back? Oh, 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 oh. It's the Nova. Hello. Thank you very much for your patience while I was getting medication. It is super important and health is very valuable, so make sure you're taking care of yourself. As a robot who doesn't really have a way to break down what food I might halfway process, into energy I can use, insulin is important. We'll go with that. Definitely not the I'm diabetic type of reason. Ah, and we've got water. Amazing. Well, thank you very much for your patience. Jazz is great. Time to chill it out a little bit again. How does birdsong sound again to everyone? I know it was very much a relaxing thing for me. I liked it. Still do. Goodness. Your cold does not burn properly. Yeah, exactly. I need a little bit of insulin to break down the sugar that might come through what sodas and flavors I might add into water for the engine, for the old engine, Seriously, goodness gracious. Uh, oh gosh. Cat knocked the keyboard, goodness. Well, my cat has banned me from leaving my bed. She's sleeping on me now. Aw, baby girl. We love her. That's precious. I love her. I'm glad she's banned you from leaving. Bed is more comfortable anyways. um Speaking of comfortable, we've got a few characters of light that are, well, one of them is rather uncomfortable with existence right now, and the other one is a charming, love-struck prince. Let's go ahead and get started. Move on to chapter 10, shall we? Chapter 10. What can I do for you? Prince Lear asked. Nothing very much just now, Molly Grew said. The water was all I needed, unless you want to peel the potatoes, which would be all right with me. No, I didn't mean that. I mean, yes, I will if you want me to, but I was talking to her. I mean, when I talk to her, that's what I keep asking. Sit down and peel me a few potatoes, Molly said. It'll give you something to do with your hands. They were in the scullery, a dank little room smelling strongly of rotting turnips and fermenting beets. A dozen earthenware dishes were piled in one corner, and a very small fire was shivering under a tripod, trying to boil a large pot of gray water. Molly sat at a rude table which was covered with potatoes, leeks, onions, peppers, carrots, and all other vegetables, most of them limp and spotty. Prince Lear stood before her, rocking slowly along his feet and twisting his big, soft fingers together. I killed another dragon this morning, he said presently. That's nice, Molly answered. That's fine. How many does that make now? 5. This one was smaller than the others, but it really gave me more trouble. I couldn't get near it on foot, so I had to go in with the lance, and my horse got pretty badly burned. It was funny about the horse, Molly interrupted him. Sit down, Your Highness, and stop doing that. I start to twitch all over just watching you. Prince Lear sat down opposite her. He drew a dagger from his belt and moodily began peeling potatoes. Molly regarded him with a slight, slow smile. I brought her the head, he said. She was in her chamber, as she usually is. I dragged the head all the way up the stairs to lay it at her feet. He sighed and nicked his finger with the dagger. Damn. I didn't mind that. All the way up the stairs, it was a dragon's head, the proudest gift anyone can give anyone. But when she looked at it, suddenly it became a sad, battered mess of scales and horns, gristly tongue, bloody eyes. I felt like some country butcher who had brought his lass a nice chunk of fresh meat as a token of his love. And then she looked at me, and I was sorry I had killed the thing. Sorry for killing a dragon. He slashed at a rubbery potato and wounded himself again.
Cut away from yourself, not towards, Molly advised him. You know, I really think you could stop slaying dragons for the Lady Amalthea. If 5 of them haven't moved her, 1 more isn't likely to do it. Try something else. But what's left of on Earth that I haven't tried? Prince Lear demanded. I've swum 4 rivers, each in full flood, and none less than a mile wide. I have climbed 7 mountains never before climbed, slept 3 nights in the marsh of the Hanged Man, and walked alive out of that forest where the flowers burn your eyes, and the nightingales sing poison. I have ended my betrothal to the princess I had agreed to marry, and if you don't think that was a heroic deed, you don't know her mother. I have vanquished exactly 15 black knights, waiting by 15 fords in their black pavilions, challenging all who come to cross, and I've long since lost count of the witches in the thorny woods, the giants, the demons disguised as damsels, the glass hills, fatal riddles and terrible tasks, the magic apples, rings, lamps, potions, swords, cloaks, boots, neckties, and nightcaps, not to mention the winged horses, the basilisks and sea serpents, and all the rest of the livestock. He raised his head, and the dark blue eyes were confused and sad. And all for nothing, he said. I cannot touch her. Whatever I do, for her sake, I have become a hero. I, Sleepy Lear, my father's sport and shame. But I might just as well have remained the dull fool I was. My great deeds mean nothing to her. Molly took up her own knife and began to slice the peppers. Then perhaps the Lady Amalthea is not to be won by great deeds. The prince stared at her, frowning in puzzlement. Is there another way to win a maiden? He asked earnestly. Molly, do you know another way? Will you tell it to me? He leaned across the table to seize her hand. I like being brave well enough, but I will be a lazy coward again if you think that would be better. The sight of her makes me want to do battle with all evils and ugliness, but it also makes me want to sit still and be unhappy. What should I do, Molly? I don't know, she said, suddenly embarrassed. Kindness, courtesy, good works, that sort of thing. A good sense of humor. A small copper and ashes cat with a crooked ear jumped into her lap, purring thunderously and leaning against her hand. Hoping to change the subject, she asked, What about your horse? What was funny? But Prince Lear was staring at the little cat with the crooked ear. Where did he come from? Is he yours? Oh, hey, we've got Sneaky in. Good to see you. Good to see you. If this unicorn doesn't 1v1 the kid that got my Rambe killed, 0 out of 10. Bro sounds like a cat. Yeah, he's. Oh, goodness. Oh, gosh. Goodness. Yeah, no, this princess is definitely a cat, but goodness. Yeah, if he doesn't do something and start slaying the real monsters here, what's the point even? Am I right? Ugh, goodness. Ugh. Okay, so we were asking about the cat. No, Molly said. I just feed him and hold him sometimes. She stroked the cat's thin throat, and it closed its eyes. I thought he lived here. The prince shook his head. My father hates cats. He says that there's no such thing as a cat. It's just a shape that all manners of imps, hobs, and devilkins like to put on to gain easy entrance into the homes of men. He would kill it if he knew you had it in here. What about the horse? Molly asked. Prince Lear's face grew glum again. That was strange. When she took no delight in the gift itself, I thought she might be interested to hear how it was won. So I told her about the view and the charge. You know, about the hissing and the naked wings and the way dragons smell. Rude, especially on raining mornings, and the way black blood jumped at the point of my lance. But she heard none of it, not a word, until I spoke of the rush of fire that nearly burned my poor horse's legs from under him. Then, ugh, then she came back from wherever she goes when I talk to her, and she said that she must go and see my horse. So I led her to the stable where the poor brute stood crying with the pain, and she put her hand on him, on his legs, and he stopped moaning. That's a terrible sound they make when they're really hurt. When they stop, it's like a song. The prince's dagger lay glittering amongst the potatoes. Outside, great gusts of rain growled round and round the castle walls, but those in the scullery could only hear it, for there was not a single window in the cold room, nor was there any light except for the meager glow of the cooking fire. It made the cat dozing in Molly's lap look like a heap of autumn leaves. "And what happened then?" she asked, "when the Lady Amalthea touched your horse?" "Nothing happened, nothing at all." Prince Lear suddenly seemed to become angry. He slammed his hand down on the table, and leeks and lentils leaped in all directions. "Did you expect something to happen? She did. Did you expect the beast's burns to heal on that instant, the cracking skin to knit, the black flesh to be whole again? She did. By my hope of her, I swear it. But when his legs didn't grow well under her hand, she ran away. I don't know where she is now." His voice softened as he spoke, and the hand on the table curled sadly on its side. He rose and went to look into the pot over the fire. "It's boiling," he said. "If you want to put the vegetables in." She wept when my horse's legs did not heal. I heard her weeping, and yet there were no tears in her eyes when she ran away. Everything else was there, but no tears. Molly put the cat gently on the floor and began gathering the venerable vegetables for the pot. Prince Lear watched her as she moved back and forth, around the table and across the dewy floor. She was singing. "If I danced with my feet, as I danced in my dreaming, as graceful and gleaming as death in disguise, oh, that would be sweet. But then would I hunger to be 10 years younger, or wedded, or wise." The prince said, "Who is she, Molly? What kind of woman is it who believes, who knows, for I saw her face, that she can cure wounds with a touch, and who weeps without tears?" Molly went on about her work, still humming to herself. "Any woman can weep without tears," she answered over her shoulder, "and most can heal with their hands. It depends on the wound. She is a woman, your highness, and that's riddle enough." But the prince stood up to bar her way, and she stopped, her apron full of herbs, and her hair trailing into her eyes. Prince Lear's face bent towards her, older by 5 dragons, but handsome and silly still. He said, "You sing. My father sets you to the weariest work there is to do, and still you sing. There's never been singing in this castle, or cats, or the smell of good cooking. It is the Lady Amalthea who causes this, as she causes me to ride out in the morning seeking danger." "I was always a fair cook," Molly said mildly, "living in the greenwood with Cully and his men for 17 years. Prince Lear continued as though she had not spoken. "I want to serve her as you do, to help her find whatever she has come here to find. I wish to be whatever she has most need of. Tell her so. Will you tell her so?" Even as he spoke, a soundless step sounded in his eyes, and the sigh of satin gowns troubled his face. The Lady Amalthea stood in the doorway. A season in King Haggard's chill domain had not dimmed or darkened her. Rather, the winter had sharpened her beauty until it invaded the beholder like a barbed arrow that could not be withdrawn. Her white hair was caught up with a blue ribbon, and her gown was lilac. It did not fit her well. Molly Grew was an indifferent seamstress, and satin made her nervous. But the Lady Amalthea seemed more lovely for the poor work, for the cold stones and the smell of turnips. There was rain in her hair. Prince Lear bowed to her, a quick, crooked bow, as though someone had hit him in the stomach. "My lady," he mumbled, "you really should cover your head when you go out in this weather." The Lady Amalthea sat down at the table, and the little autumn-colored cat immediately sprang up before her, purring swiftly and very softly. She put out her hand, but the cat slid away, still purring. He did not appear frightened, but he would not let her touch his rusty fur. The Lady Amalthea beckoned, and the cat wriggled all over like a dog, but he would not come near. Prince Lear said hoarsely, I must go. There is an ogre of some sort devouring village maidens 2 days' ride from here. It is said that he can be slain only by one who wields the great axe of Duke Alban. Unfortunately, Duke Alban himself was one of the first consumed. He was dressed as a village maiden at the time to deceive the monster, and there is little doubt who holds the axe now. If I do not return, think of me. Farewell. Farewell, your highness, Molly said. The prince bowed again and left the scullery on his noble errand. He looked back only once. You are cruel to him, Molly said. The Lady Amalthea did not look up. She was offering her open palm to the crook-eared cat, but he stayed where he was, shivering with the desire to go to her. Cruel, she asked. How can I be cruel? That is for mortals. But then she did raise her eyes, and they were great with sorrow, and with something very near to mockery. She said, So is kindness. Molly Grew busied herself with the cooking pot, stirring the soup and seasoning it, bustling numbly. In a low voice, she remarked, You might give him a gentle word, at the very least. He has undergone mighty trials for you. But what word shall I speak? Asked the Lady Amalthea. I have said nothing to him, yet every day he comes to me with more heads, more horns and hides and tails, more enchanted jewels and bewitched weapons. What will he do if I speak? Molly said, He wishes you to think of him. Knights and princes know only one way to be remembered. It's not his fault. I think he does very well. The Lady Amalthea turned her eyes to the cat again. Her long fingers twisted at the seam of the satin gown. No, he does not want my thoughts, she said softly. He wants me as much as the Red Bull did, and with no more understanding. But he frightens me even more than the Red Bull because he has a kind heart. No, I will never speak a promising word to him. The pale mark on her brow was invisible in the gloom of the scullery. She touched it, and then drew her hand away quickly, as though the mark hurt her. The horse died, she said to the little cat. I could do nothing. Molly turned quickly and put her hands on the Lady Amalthea's shoulders. Beneath the sleek cloth, the flesh was cold and hard as any stone of King Haggard's castle. Oh, my lady, she whispered, that is because you are out of your true form. When you regain yourself, it will all return, all of your power, all your strength, all your sureness. It will come back to you. Had she dared, she would have taken the white girl in her arms and lulled her like a child. She had never dreamed of such a thing before. But the Lady Amalthea answered, The magician gave me only the semblance of a human being, the seeming, but not the spirit. If I had died then, I would still have been a unicorn. The old man knew. The wizard. He said nothing, to spite Haggard, but he knew. Of fear, of itself, her hair escaped the blue ribbon and came hurrying down her neck and over her shoulders. The cat was all but won by this eagerness. He lifted a paw to play with it, but then he drew back once more and sat on his haunchers, tail curled around his front feet, queer head to the side. His eyes were green, speckled with gold. But that was long ago, the girl said. Now I am two, myself, and this other that you call my lady. For she is here as truly as I am now, though once she was only a veil over me. She walks in the castle, she sleeps, she dresses herself, she takes her meals, and she thinks her own thoughts. If she has no power to heal or to quiet, she still has another magic. Men speak to her, saying, Lady Amalthea, and she answers them or she does not answer. The king is always watching her out of his pale eyes, wondering what she is, and the king's son wounds himself with loving her and wonders who she is. And every day she searches the sea and the sky, the castle and the courtyard, the keep and the king's face, for something she cannot always remember. What is it? What is it that she's seeking in this strange place? She knew a moment ago, but she's forgotten. She turned her face to Molly Grew, and her eyes were not the unicorn's eyes. They were lovely still, but in a way that had a name, as a human woman is beautiful. Their depth could be sounded and learned, and their degree of darkness was quite describable. Molly saw fear and loss and bewilderment when she looked into them, and herself, and said nothing more. Unicorns, she said. The Red Bull has driven them all away. All but you. You are the last unicorn. You came here to find the others, and to set them free. And so you will. Slowly, the deep, secret sea returned to the Lady Amalthea's eyes, filling them until they were as old and dark and unknowable and indescribable as the sea. Molly watched it happen, and was afraid. But she gripped the bowed shoulders, and even more tightly, as though her hands could draw despair like a lightning rod. And as she did so, there shivered in the scullery floor a sound she had heard before. A sound like great teeth, molars grinding together. The Red Bull was turning in his sleep. I wonder if he dreams, Molly thought. The Lady Amalthea then said, I must go to him. There is no other way, and no time to spare. In this form or my own, I must face him again, even if all my people are dead and there is nothing to be saved. I must go to him before I forget myself forever. But I do not know the way, and I am lonely. The little cat switched his tail and made an odd sound that was neither a meow nor a purr. I'll go with you, Molly said. I don't know the way down to the bull either, but there must be one. Schmendrick will come too. He'll make the way for us if we can't find it. I hope for no help from the magician, the Lady Amalthea replied disdainfully. I see him every day playing the fool for King Haggard, amusing him by his failures, by blundering at even the most trifling trick. He says that it is all he can do until his power speaks in him again. But it never will. He's no magician now, but the king's clown. Molly's face suddenly hurt her, and she turned away to inspect the soup again, answering past a sharpness in her throat. She said, He is doing it for you. While you brood and mope and become someone else, he jigs and jests for Haggard, diverting him so that you may have time to find your folk, if they are to be found. But it cannot be long before the king tires of him, as he tires of all things, and casts him down to his dungeons or someplace darker. You do wrong to mock him. Her voice was a child's thin, sad mumble. She said, But that will never happen to you. Everyone loves you. They had a moment to look at each other, the two women, the one fair and foreign in the cold, low room, the other appearing quite at home in such surroundings, an angry little beetle with her own kitchen beauty. Then they heard boots scraping, armor clicking, and the gusty voices of old men. King Haggard's 4 men-at-arms came trooping into the scullery. They were at least 70 years old, gaunt and limping, fragile as crusted snow, but all clad from head to foot in King Haggard's miserly mail and bearing his wry weapons. They entered, hailing Molly Grew cheerfully and asking what she had made for their supper. But at the sight of Lady Amalthea, all 4 became very quiet and bowed deep bows that made them gasp. My lady, said the oldest of the men, command your servants. We are used men, spent men, but if you would see miracles, you have only to request the impossible of us. We will become young again, if you wish it so. His 3 comrades muttered their agreement. But the Lady Amalthea whispered in answer, No, no, you will never be young again. Then she fled from them, with her wild, blinding hair hiding her face, and the satin gown hissing. How wise she is, the oldest man-at-arms declared. She understands that not even her beauty can do battle with time. It is a rare, sad wisdom for one so young. The soup smells delicious, though, Molly. It smells too savory for this place, a second man grumbled as they all sat down around the table. Haggard hates good food. He said that no meal is good enough to justify all the money and effort wasted in preparing it. It's an illusion, says he, and an expense. Live as I do, undeceived. Brr. He shuddered and grimaced. The others laughed. To live like Haggard, said another man-at-arms as Molly spooned the steaming soup into his bowl. That will be my fate in the next world if I don't behave myself in this one. Why do you stay in his service, then? Molly demanded. She sat down with them and rested her chin on her hands. He pays you no wages, she said, and he feeds you as little as he dares. He sends you out in the worst weather to steal for him in Hagsgate, for he never spends a penny on the wealth in his storage room. He forbids everything from lights to lutes, from fires to fairs and singing to sinning, from books and beer and talk of spring to games you play with bits of string. Why not leave him? What in the world is there to keep you here? The four old men looked nervously at one another, coughing and sighing. The first said, It is our age. Where else would we go? We are too old to be wandering the roads looking for work and for shelter. It is our age, said the second man-at-arms. When you are old, anything that does not disturb you is a comfort. Cold and darkness, boredom, lost long ago, they lost their sharp edges for us. But warmth, singing, spring, no, they would all be disturbances. They are worse things than living like Haggard. The third man said, Haggard is older than we are. In time, Prince Lear will be king in this country, and I will not leave the world until I have seen that day. I have always been fond of the boy since he was small. Molly found that she was not hungry. She looked around at the faces of the old men and listened to the sounds their seamy lips and shrunken throats made as they drank her soup, and she was suddenly glad that King Haggard always had his meals alone. Molly inevitably came to care for anyone she fed. Cautiously, she asked them, Have you ever heard a tale that Prince Lear is not Haggard's adopted nephew at all? The men-at-arms showed no surprise at the question. Aye, the eldest replied. We know that story. It may well be true, for the prince certainly bears no family resemblance to the king. But what of it? Better a stolen stranger ruled the land than a true son of King Haggard. But if the prince was stolen from Hagsgate, Molly cried, then he is the man who will make the curse on this castle come true. And she repeated the rhyme that the man Drin had recited in the inn at Hagsgate. Yet none but one of Hagsgate town may bring the castle swirling down. But the old men shook their heads, grinning with teeth as rusty as their casques and corselets. Not Prince Lear, the third man said. The prince may slay 1,000 dragons, but he will level no castles, overthrow no kings. It is not in his nature. He is a dutiful son who seeks, alas, only to be worthy of the man he calls his father. Not Prince Lear. The rhyme must speak of some other. And even if Prince Lear were the one, the second man added, even if the curse had marked him for its messenger, still he would fail, for between King Haggard and any doom stands the Red Bull. A silence sprang into the room and stood there, darkening all faces, which is... Whoa, I need water. I'm stumbling over every word I'm saying. Golly gosh. Goodness. Let's go ahead and see this here. Oh, Booney's in. Hi, Booney. Hello, hello. Good to see you. Good to see you. Just got an ad in French. How can I do this? Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I'm so sorry. It was not on purpose. I promise. I would never do that on purpose. Me, French, never. Oh, goodness, though. Ugh, did it retreat though? It was seagulls speaking French. Oh gosh, two atrocities in one ad. Yeah, that's nightmare fuel. I'll never understand the French. I wouldn't want to. Yeah, no, I would never either. I'm I'm perhaps too American for it, goodness. Let's see, POV, Loretto reads you a bedtime story. I would love to read you a bedtime story. Do you need me to tuck you in and get you a glass of water before we start? I'd be more than happy to. I need a glass of water for myself. That shall happen.
Ah, there we go. Ugh.
Goodness, bro, yes. Just remember the English language has ties to French. I never said I liked English either. I'm not a fan of the English language. Mostly Dutch, thankfully. Yeah, it's a Germanic language. French is Latin based, so yes, there are ties to it. How do I phrase this? There is a certain je ne sais quoi about it. But yeah, English is a disaster of a language. Thankfully, it puts out pretty good books. Um, I'm a fan of this one. Let's see, where were we? They were crap talking the prince for a second. There we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started once again. Page 192, everybody. A silence sprang into the room and stood there, darkening all faces, which its wow, I really still can't read, with its savage shadow, a chilling the good hot soup with its breath. The little autumn cat stopped purring on Molly's lap, and the thin cooking fire cowered down. The cold scullery walls seemed to draw closer together. The fourth man at arms, who had not spoken before, called across the dark to Molly Grew. There is the true reason that we stay in Haggard's employ. He does not wish us to leave, and what King Haggard wishes, or does not wish, is the only concern of the Red Bull. We are Haggard's minions, but we are the Red Bull's prisoners. Molly's hand was steady as she stroked the cat, but her voice was pinched and dry when she spoke. What is the Red Bull to King Haggard? It was the oldest man at arms who answered. We do not know. The bull has always been here. It serves Haggard as his army and his bulwark. It is his strength and the source of his strength, and it must be his one companion as well, for I am sure he descends to its lair betimes, down some secret stair. But whether it obeys Haggard from choice or compulsion, and whether the bull or the king is the master, that we have never known. The fourth man, who was the youngest, leaned toward Molly Grew, his pink, wet eyes suddenly eager. He said, The Red Bull is a demon, and its reckoning for attending Haggard will one day be Haggard himself. Another man interrupted him, insisting that the clearest evidence showed that the bull was King Haggard's enchanted slave, and would be until it broke the bewitchment that held it and destroyed its former lord. They began to shout and spill their soup, but Molly asked, not loudly, but in a way that made them all be still. Do you know what a unicorn is? Have you ever seen one? Of everything alive in the little room, only the cat and the silence seemed to look back at her with any understanding. The four men blinked and belched and rubbed their eyes. Deep, restless, the sleeping bull stirred again. The meal being over, the men-at-arms saluted Molly Grew and left the scullery, two for their beds, two to take up their night's vigil in the rain. The oldest of the men waited until the others were gone before he said quietly to Molly, Be careful of the Lady Amalthea. When she first came here, her beauty was such that even this accursed castle became beautiful too, like the moon, which is only a shining stone. But she has been here too long. Now she is as beautiful as ever, but the rooms and roofs that contain her are somehow meaner for her presence. He gave a long sigh, which frayed into a whine. I am familiar with that kind of beauty, he said, but I had never seen that other sort before. Be careful of her. She should go away from here. Alone, Molly put her face in the little cat's random fur. The cooking fire fluttered low, but she did not get up to feed it. Small, swift creatures scuttled across the room, making a sound like King Haggard's voice, and the rain rumbled against the castle walls, sounding like the Red Bull. Then, as though in answer, she heard the bull. His bellow shattered the stones under her feet, and she clutched desperately at the table to keep herself and the cat from plunging down to him. she cried out. The cat said, "He's going out. He goes out every sundown to hunt for the strange white beast that escaped him. You know that perfectly well. Don't be stupid." The hungering roar came again, farther away. Molly caught her breath and stared at the little cat. She was not as amazed as another might have been. These days she was harder to surprise than most women. "Could you always talk?" she asked the cat. "Or was it the sight of Lady Amalthea that gave you speech?" The cat licked a front paw reflectively. "It was the sight of her that made me feel like talking," he said at length. "And let us leave it at that. So that is a unicorn. She is very beautiful." "How do you know that she's a unicorn?" Molly demanded. "And why were you afraid to let her touch you? I saw you. You were afraid of her." "I doubt that I will feel like talking for a very long," the cat replied without rancor. "I would not waste time in foolishness if I were you. As to your first question, no cat out of its first fur can ever be deceived by appearances, unlike human beings who enjoy them. As for your second question," here he faltered, and suddenly became very interested in washing. Nor would he speak until he had licked himself fluffy and then licked himself smooth again. Even then, he would not look at Molly, but examine his claws. "If she had touched me," he said very softly, "I would have been hers, and not my own, not ever again. I wanted her to touch me, but I could not let her. No cat will. We let human beings caress us because it is pleasant enough and calms them, but not her. The price is more than a cat can pay." Molly picked him up then, and he purred into her neck for such a long while that she began to fear that his moment of speech had passed. But presently he said, "You have very little time. Soon she will no longer remember who she is, or why she came to this place, and the Red Bull will no longer roar in the night for her. It may be that she will marry the good prince who loves her." The cat pushed his head hard into Molly's suddenly still hand. "Do that," he commanded. "The prince is very brave to love a unicorn. A cat can appreciate valiant absurdity." "No," said Molly Grew. "No, that cannot be. She is the last." "Well, then, she must do what she came to do," the cat replied. "She must take the king's way down to the bull." Molly held him so fiercely that he gave a mouse-like squeak of protest. "Do you know the way?" she asked, as eagerly as Prince Lear had demanded of her. "Tell me the way. Tell me where we must go." She put the cat down on the table and took her hands off of him. The cat made no answer for a long time, but his eyes grew brighter and brighter, gold shivering down to cover the green. His crooked ear twitched, and the black tip of his tail, and nothing more. "When the wine drinks itself," he said, "when the skull speaks, when the clock strikes the right time, only then will you find the tunnel that leads to the Red Bull's lair." He tucked his paws under his chest and added, "There is a trick to it, of course." "I'll bet," Molly said grimly. "There is a horrible, crumbly old skull stuck up high on a pillar in the great hall, but it hasn't had anything to say for some time. The clock that stands nearby is mad and strikes when it pleases, midnight every hour, 17 o'clock at 4, or perhaps not a sound for a week. And the wine. Oh, cat, wouldn't it be simpler just to show me the tunnel? You know where it is, don't you?" "Of course I know," answered the cat, with a glinting, curling yawn. "Of course it would be simpler for me to show you. Save a lot of time and trouble." His voice was becoming a sleepy drawl, and Molly realized that, like King Haggard himself, he was losing interest. Quickly she asked him, "Tell me one thing then. What became of the unicorns? Where are they?" The cat yawned again. "Near and far, far and near," he murmured. "They are within sight of your lady's eyes, but almost out of reach of her memory. They are coming closer, and they are going away." He closed his eyes. Molly's breath came like rope, fretting against her harsh throat. "Damn you, why won't you help me?" she cried. Why must you always speak in riddles? One eye opened slowly, green and gold as sunlight in the woods. The cat said, I am what I am. I would tell you what you want to know if I could, for you have been kind to me. But I am a cat, and no cat anywhere ever gave anyone a straight answer. His last few words drowsed away into a deep, regular purr, and he was asleep with the one eye partly open. Molly held him on her lap and stroked him, and he purred in his sleep, but he did not speak again. Ugh, goodness gracious, chapter 10. There's a talking cat. Let's go. Now we just need to add like cat girls to this and we're perfect and we're set, you know? Absolutely the truth there. Goodness, goodness. Ugh. If it's anything a southern dialect speak, a lot like Shakespeare, yeah. We just sound weird. Yeah, no, I've heard Shakespeare read in like a southern Appalachian accent. It's fascinating for sure. Talking cats, I know. Talking sneaky riddle cat. How wonderful. It's definitely a plus. I mean, I'll take it, you know? For sure, for sure. Ugh, gosh. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, something was going on. Sneaky. Yeah, sneaky. Let's go. Sneaky, sneaky. Ugh, gosh. Let's add more water, shall we? I desperately need it. Ugh. There we go. Oh, goodness. High blood sugar does things to you. Being extremely thirsty is one of them. Get some of that Wawa. I shall. I'm gonna take more of it. More water has been ingested. Oh, it's so good. Make sure you guys are staying hydrated too. I know Kit woke up just a little bit ago, so make sure you're getting proper hydration. That is so, so important. For reals, it is. No, really. No. Do it. Take care of yourselves. Making sure you are taking care of yourself is important. I think you should do it. It might make me sad if you don't. Enter the Thunderdome. Oh, goodness. Ugh. Oh, let's go ahead and take a quick stretch break. Ugh. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Ugh. Goodness. Ugh. Needed a proper stretch for a moment. Gosh. Ah. No cursing? Oh, you've been saving up for that, haven't you, you brat? Get fricked, nerd. Wow. We can do that. Wait a minute, what if the book curses? I haven't thought about this. Do I have to, like... Do I have to, like, Midwestern fake curse? Do I double no cursing? Oh, God. Wait, does that count? Does that count? Okay, oh gosh. Golly. Jeepers. Oh, man. Oh, no. This is gonna be fun. So if the book curses, no cursing allowed. We have to awkward Midwestern curse. Got it. I can do that. We can do that. I think I can do that. Can't say... Oh, gosh. I can't say either of those things. I don't think those count as cursing, to be fair. Like, 10-year-old cursing is different than, like, junior high cursing once you finally turn 12. You know? It's very different. It's very different. Anything similar? No replacements? What am I gonna do? Ugh, my cat stepped... Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. We gotta keep things, like, rated G here. Yeah. Imagine overbearing church mom. Yeah, overbearing church mom. You mean my family members? Yes. We can go with that. Okay. If Lear curses, you have to read it in Christopher Lee's voice. Oh my gosh. No, we can't do cursing. No cursing. I think it's for, oh gosh. Wait a minute. No, let me double check. Is it 10 minutes or is it 15 minutes? Hold up. Hold up. We gotta check this. We gotta check this. Is it 10 minutes? Okay, so we've got 20 minutes. Let's see. If you do Sir Christopher Lee's voice, I will die. I can't do Sir Christopher Lee's voice. I think, didn't he voice Lear in the movie? Is the thing? I'm pretty sure he voiced Prince Lear in the movie, in the animated film they did back forever ago. Let's see. No lollipops. What? I don't understand that one, but yeah. Was Haggard. Oh, he voiced Haggard. Yeah, that would be different. I was just gonna say if it's Haggard, I was like, does he voice the prince? I didn't think so. Wait, this book has a movie? Yeah, there's an animated movie. A lot of the animation studio that worked on it, they moved and turned into Studio Ghibli. Um, yeah, he was Willie's father. Yeah, in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie version. Right, I remember. The like Johnny Depp Tim Burton version. Um, yeah, no, he did King Haggard in the animated movie. Which once we finish the book, hopefully we'll be able to get through that tonight. I would love to go ahead and do like a community night on the Discord watching that film. It would be absolutely wonderful. So I think it would be so much fun. I know what we're doing if we get a community night. Yeah. Also, Count Dooku from Star Wars. Yeah. He's an absolutely phenomenal actor. I love it. I'd love to watch this movie, and honestly, the movie follows the book really darn closely. Wait, no, I can't say that. Oh, really, really, really closely. Very, really, very closely. Oh no! Now I gotta restart. Is that DARN? Oh, dang it. Wait, does that count? I don't think so. I don't think so. Get. Oh, no, I'd rather not right now. Thanks, though. Thanks, though. It's fine. I mean, if I'm the one doing that, that's a little different, but uh, I said the words. Now I gotta restart again. Okay. 1 second. Bookmark. Bookmark come in handy, my beloved. Bookmark come in handy, my beloved. Um, let's see. I need a timer. I need a timer. Where is the timer? It's 20 minutes. Okay. Fiddlesticks will always pass the sensors. Does fiddlesticks count, actually? That's a good one. He's played in a diverse number of monster movies because he wanted to to go Pokemon on all of the monsters. Imagine him Pokemoning Mothman. That'd be great. Okay, I have restarted a 20-minute timer. So we've got our two no cursings. Fiddlesticks is okay. Aw, thank goodness. Ah! Ah! We're good. Cat attacked me. We're fine. It's fine. Okay. We've had a hot chatting moment for a bit, and we've gone through quite a few chapters. Like, we only have 11, 12, 13, and 14 to get to, and we have less than 100 pages, so we can totally go through this. Let's see. He just wanted to play a part in every type of monster movie. Yeah, that is valid. He's wonderful. I love him. I love the voice he does. I love Liam Neeson's voice as well. It's phenomenal. Okay. So, let's hop back into the book for a little bit. We've got our timer counting down. So moving on to chapter 11. Let's see. Prince Lear came home 3 days after he set out to slay the maiden fancying ogre, with the great axe of Duke Alban slung behind him as the ogre's head bumping at his saddle bow. He offered neither prize to the Lady Amalthea, nor did he rush to find her with the monster's blood still brown on his hands. He had made up his mind, as he explained to Molly Grew in the scullery that evening, never more to trouble the Lady Amalthea with his attentions, but to live quietly in the thought of her, serving her ardently until his lonely death, but seeking neither her company, her admiration, nor her love. I will be as anonymous as the air she breathes, he said, as invisible as the force that holds her on the earth. Thinking about it for a little, he added, I may write a poem for her now and then, slip it under her door, or just leave it somewhere for her to chance upon, but I won't ever sign the poem. It's very noble, Molly said. She felt relieved that the prince was giving up his courtship, and amused as well, and somewhat sad. Girls like poems better than dead dragons and magic swords, she offered. I always did, anyways, when I was a girl. The reason I ran off with Cully. But Prince Lear interrupted her, saying firmly, No, do not give me hope. I must learn to live without hope, as my father does, and perhaps we will understand each other at last. He dug into his pockets, and Molly heard paper crackling. Actually, I've already written a few poems about it. Hope and her, and so on. You might look them over if you wanted to. I'd be very pleased, Molly said. But will you never go out again, then, to fight with black knights and ride through rings of fire? The words were meant teasingly, but she found as she spoke that she would have been a little sorry if it were so, for his adventures had made him much handsomer, and taken off a lot of the weight and given him, besides, a hint of the musty fragrance of death that clings to all heroes. But the prince shook his head, looking almost embarrassed. Ugh, I suppose I'll keep my hand in, he muttered. But it wouldn't be for the show of it, or for her to find out. It was like that at first, but you get into the habit of rescuing people, breaking enchantments, challenging the wicked duke in fair combat. It's hard to give up being a hero once you get used to it. Do you like the first poem? It certainly has a lot of feeling, she said. Can you really rhyme bloomed and ruined, though? Needs a little bit of smoothing out, Prince Lear admitted. Miracle is the word I'm worried about. I was wondering about grackle, myself. No, the spelling. Is it one R and two L's, or the other way around? One R, anyway, I think, Molly said. Schmendrick, for the magician had just stopped through the doorway. How many R's are in miracle? Two, he answered wearily. It has the same root as mirror. Molly ladled him out a bowl of broth, and he sat down at the table. His eyes were hard and cloudy as jade, and one of the lids was twitching. I can't do this very much longer, he said slowly. It isn't this horrible place, and it isn't having to listen for him all the time. I'm getting rather good at that. It's the wretched cheap jack flummery. Whoa, hello. What? I just got super disaster just disaster slapped by that word. It's the wretched cheapjack flummery he has me performing for him hours on end. All night last night. I wouldn't mind if he asked for real magic or even for simple conjuring, but it's always the rings and the goldfish, the cards and the scars and the string, exactly as it was at the Midnight Carnival. I can't do that, not much more. But that was what he wanted you for, Molly protested. If he wanted real magic, he'd have kept the old magician, that Mabrook. Schmendrick raised his head and gave her a look that was almost amused. I didn't mean it like that, she said. Besides, it's only for a little while, until we find the way to the Red Bull that the cat told me about. She lowered her voice to a whisper as she spoke this last, and both of them glanced quickly over at the Prince Lear. But he was sitting on a stool in the corner, evidently writing another poem. Gazelle, he murmured, tapping his pen against his lips. Demoiselle, citadel, asphodel, philomel, parallel. He chose farewell and scribbled rapidly. We will never find the way, Schmendrick said very quietly. Even if the cat told the truth, which I doubt, Haggard will make sure we never have time to investigate the skull and the clock. Why do you suppose he piles more and more work on you every day, if not to keep you from prowling and prying in the Great Hall? Why do you think he keeps me entertaining him with my carnival tricks? Why do you think he took me as his wizard in the first place? Molly, he knows. I'm sure of it. He knows what she is, though he doesn't quite believe it yet. But when he does, he'll know what to do. He knows. I see it in his face sometimes. The lift of longing and the crash of loss, Prince Lear said. The bitterness of tumpty umpty os. Cross, boss, moss. Insert expletive here. There is indeed a curse word right here. Oh, goodness. Schmendrick leaned across the table. We can't stay here and wait for him to strike. The only hope we have is to escape at night. By sea, perhaps, if we can lay hold of a boat somewhere. The men-at-arms will look the other way, and the gate. Ugh, but the others, she cried softly. How can we leave when she has come so far to find the other unicorns, and we know they are here? Yet one small, tender, treacherous part of her was suddenly eager to be convinced of the quest's failure, and she knew it, and was angry at Schmendrick. Well, but what about your magic? She asked. What about your own little search? Are you going to give that up too? Will she die in human shape, and you live forever? You might as well let the bull have her then. The magician sank back, his face gone as pale and crumpled as a washerwoman's fingers. Doesn't really matter one way or the other, he said, almost to himself. She's no unicorn now, but a mortal woman. Someone for that lout to sigh over and write poems about. Maybe Haggard won't find her out at all. She'll be his daughter, and he'll never know. That's funny. He put his soup aside, untasted, and leaned into his hands. I couldn't change her back into a unicorn if we did find the others, he said. There's no magic in me. Schmendrick, she began. But at that moment he jumped to his feet and rushed out of the scullery, though she had not heard the king summon him. Prince Lear never looked up, but went on drumming meters and sampling rhymes. Molly hung a kettle over the fire for the sentry's tea. I've got it all but the final couplet, Lear said presently. Do you want to hear it now, or would you rather wait? Whichever you like, she said. So he read it then, but she never heard a word of it. Fortunately, the men-at-arms came in before he had finished reading, and he was too shy to ask her opinion in their presence. By the time they left, he was working on something else, and it was very late when he bade her good night. Molly was sitting at the table, holding her motley cat. The new poem was meant to be Sestina, and Prince Lear's head was jangling happily as he juggled the end words on his way up the stairs to his chamber. I will leave the first one at her door, he thought, and save the others until tomorrow. He was debating his original decision again, signing his work, and playing with such pen names as The Knight of the Shadows and Le Chevalier. I can't read this. This is French. We talked about hating French earlier. This is French. Le Chevalier Malami, probably. Probably the chivalrous lover, something along those lines, is what I'm assuming it translates to. I don't really speak French fluently. When he turned a corner and met the Lady Amalthea, she was coming down quickly in the dark, and when she saw him, she made a strange, bleating sound and stood still, 3 steps above him. She wore a robe that was one of the king's men had stolen for her in Hagsgate. Her hair was down, and her feet were bare, and the sight of her on the stairs sent such sorrow licking along Prince Lear's bones that he dropped his poems and his pretenses together, and acutely turned to run. But he was a hero in all ways, and he turned bravely back to face her, saying in a calm and courtly manner, "Give you good evening, my lady?" The Lady Amalthea stared at him through the gloom, putting out a hand but drawing it back before she touched him. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Are you Ruck?" "I'm Lear," he answered, suddenly frightened. "Don't you know me?" But she backed away, and it seemed to the prince that her steps were as flowing as an animal's, and that she even lowered her head in the way of a goat or a deer. He said, "I'm Lear." "The old woman," said Lady Amalthea. "The moon went out. Ah!" She shivered once, and then her eyes recognized him. But all her body was still wild and watchful as she came no nearer towards him. "You were dreaming, my lady," he said, finding knightly speech again. "I would that I might know your dream." "I have dreamed it before," she answered slowly. "I was in a cage, and there were others, beasts in cages, and an old woman. But I will not trouble you, my lord prince. I have dreamed it many times before." She would have left him then, but he spoke to her in a voice that only heroes have, as many animals develop a certain call when they become mothers. A dream that returns so often is likely to be a messenger, come to warn you of the future or remind you of things untimely forgotten. Say more of this, if you will, and I'll try to riddle it for you. Thereupon she halted, looking at him with her head a little turned, still with the air of some slim, furred creature peering out of a thicket, but her eyes held a human look of loss, as though she had missed something she needed, or suddenly realized that she had never had it. If he had even blinked, she would have been gone. But he had not blinked, and he did not blink. And he held her, and he had learned to hold griffins and chimeras and motionless with his steady gaze. Her bare feet wounded him deeper than any tusk or writhing talon ever had. But he was a true hero. The Lady Amalthea said, "In the dream, there are black barred wagons, and beasts that are and are not, and a winged being that clangs like metal in the moonlight. The tall man has green eyes and bloody hands." "The tall man must be your uncle, the magician," Prince Lear mused. "That part's clear enough, anyway. And the bloody hands don't surprise me. I never cared much for his looks, if you'll pardon me saying so. Is that all of the dream?" "I cannot tell you all of it," she said. "It is never finished." Fear came back to her eyes like a great stone falling into a pool. All was clouded and swirling, and quick shadows were rushing everywhere. She said, "I am running away from a good place where I was safe, and the night is burning around me, but it is day too, and I am walking under beech trees in the warm, sour rain, and there are butterflies and a honey sound and dappled roads and towns like fish bones, and the flying thing is killing the old woman. I am running and running into the freezing fire, however I turn, and my legs are the legs of a beast." "Lady," Prince Lear broke in, "my lady, by your leave, no more." Her dream was darkening into shape between them, and suddenly he did not want to know what it meant. "No more," he said. "But I must go on," said the Lady Amalthea, "for it is never finished. Even while I wake, I cannot tell what is real and what I am dreaming as I move and speak and eat my dinner. I remember what cannot have happened and forget something that is happening to me now. People look at me as though I should know them, and I do know them in the dream, and always the fire draws nearer though I am awake." "No more," he said desperately. "A witch built this castle, and to speak of nightmare here often makes them come true." It was not her dream that chilled him, but that she did not weep as she told it. As a hero, he understood weeping women and knew how to make them stop crying. Generally, you killed something, but her calm terror confused and unmannered him, while the shape of her face crumbled the distant dignity he had been so pleased at maintaining. When he spoke again, his voice was young and stumbling. "I would court you with more grace," he said, "if I knew how. My dragons and my feats of arms weary you, but they are all I have to offer. I haven't been a hero for very long, and before I was a hero, I was nothing at all. Nothing but my father's dull, soft son. Perhaps I am only dull in a new way now, but I am here, and it is wrong of you to let me go to waste. I wish you wanted something of me. It wouldn't have to be a valiant deed, just useful." Then the Lady Amalthea smiled at him for the first time since she had come to stay in King Haggard's castle. It was a small smile, like the new moon, a slender bend of brightness on the edge of the unseen, but Prince Lear leaned towards it to be warm. He would have cupped his hand around her smile and breathed it brighter if he had dared. "Sing to me," she said. "That would be valiant, to raise your voice in this dark, lonely place. And it will be useful as well. Sing to me, sing loudly. Drown out my dreams, keep me from remembering whatever wants me to remember it. Sing to me, my lord prince, if it please you. It may not seem a hero's task, but I would be glad of it." So Prince Lear sang out lustily, there on the cold stairway, and many damp, unseen creatures went flopping and scurrying for cover before the daylight gaiety made of his voice. He sang the first words that came to him, and they were these: "When I was a young man and very well thought of, I couldn't ask aught that ladies denied. I nibbled their hearts like a handful of raisins, and I never spoke love, but I knew that I lied. But I said to myself, ah, they none of them know the secret I shelter and savor and save. I wait for the one who will see through my seeming, and I'll know when I love by the way I behave." The years drifted over like clouds in the heavens, and ladies went by me like snow on the wind. I charmed and I cheated, deceived and dissembled, and I sinned and I sinned and I sinned and I sinned. But I said to myself, ah, they none of them see. There's a part of me pure as the whisk of a wave. My lady is late, but she'll find I've been faithful, and I'll know when I love by the way I behave. At last came a lady both knowing and tender, saying, "You're not at all what they take you to be." I betrayed her before she had quite finished speaking, and she swallowed cold poison and jumped in the sea. And I say to myself, when there's time for a word, as I gracefully grow more debauched and depraved, ah, love may be strong, but a habit is stronger, and I knew when I loved by the way I behaved. The Lady Amalthea laughed when he was done, and the sound seemed to set the old darkness of the castle hissing back from them both. "That was useful," she said. "Thank you, my lord." "I don't know why I sang that one," Prince Lear said awkwardly. "One of my father's men used to sing it to me. Um, I don't really believe it. I think love is stronger than habits or circumstances. I think it's possible to keep yourself for someone for a long time and still remember why you were waiting for them when she comes at last." The Lady Amalthea smiled again, but she did not answer, and the prince took a single step closer to her. Marveling at his own boldness, he said softly, "I would enter your sleep if I could and guard you there, and slay the thing that hounds you, as if it as I would if it had the courage to face me in this fair daylight." Oh, timer. There's the 20-minute timer. Hey, guess what? Damn it! We did it. There we go. When I was a young man, my father took me into the city. I would not be surprised. He strikes me as very much the edgy edgelord child who like ends up being a golden retriever boyfriend. He gives me that vibe for sure. For sure, for sure, for sure. um let's see. I'm going to restart this paragraph. Marveling at his own boldness, he said softly, "I would enter your sleep if I could and guard you there, and slay the thing that hounds you, as I would if it had the courage to face me in fair daylight. but I cannot come in unless you dream of me." Before she could speak, if she meant to, they heard footsteps below them on the winding stair, and King Haggard's veiled voice saying, "I heard him singing. What business had he to be singing?" Then Schmendrick, the royal wizard, his own voice meek and hurried, "Sire, it was but some heroic lay, some chanson de geste, such as he often sings when he rides out to glory or rides home to renown. But assured, your majesty, he never sings here," the king said. "He sings continuously on his fool's wandering, I am sure, because that is what heroes do. But he was singing here, and not of battle or gallantry either, but of love. Where is she? I knew he was singing of love before I even heard him, for the very stones shuddered as they do when the bull moves in the earth. Where is she?" The prince and the Lady Amalthea looked at each other in the darkness, and in that moment they were side by side, though neither moved. With this came fear of the king, for whatever had been born between them, it might be something he wanted. A landing above them gave onto a corridor, and they turned and ran together. Though they could not see beyond their breaths, her feet were as silent as the promise she had given him, but his own heavy boots rang exactly like boots on the stone floor. King Haggard made no pursuit, but his voice rustled down the hallway after them, whispering under the magician's words, "Mice, my lord, beyond a doubt. Fortunately, I am possessed of a singular spell. Let them run," the king said. "It suits me well that they should run." When they stopped running, wherever they stopped, they looked at each other again. And so the winter whined and crept along, not towards any spring, but toward the brief, devouring summer of King Haggard's country. Life in the castle went on in the silence that fills a place where no one hopes for anything. Molly Grew cooked and laundered, scrubbed stone, mended armor, and sharpened swords. She chopped wood, milled flour, groomed horses, and cleaned their stalls, melted down stolen gold and silver for the king's coffers, and made bricks without straw. And in the evenings, before she went to bed, she usually read over Prince Lear's new poems to the Lady Amalthea, and praised them, and corrected the spelling. Schmendrick fooled and juggled, and flim-flammed as the king bade him, hating it, and knowing that Haggard knew he hated it, and took his pleasure thereby. He never again suggested to Molly that they escape from the castle before Haggard made sure of the truth of the Lady Amalthea. But he no longer sought to discover the secret way down to the Red Bull, even when he was allowed time to himself. He seemed to have surrendered, not to the king, but to some far older, crueler enemy that had caught up with him at last, this winter, in this place. The Lady Amalthea grew as much more beautiful every day as the day was grimmer and gloomier than the one before. The old men at arms, coming down drenched and shivering from walking their posts in the rain, or in from stealing things for the king, opened as quietly as flowers when they met her on the stairs or in the hallways. She would smile at them and speak gently, but when she passed by, the castle always seemed darker than ever, and the wind outside would rattle the thick sky like a sheet on a clothesline. For her beauty was human and doomed, and there was no comfort in it for the old men. They could only draw from their dripping cloaks tighter and limp on down to the small fire in the scullery. But the Lady Amalthea and Prince Lear walked and spoke and sang together as blithely as though King Haggard's castle had become a greenwood, wild and shadowy with spring. They climbed the crooked towers like hills, picnicked in stone meadows, under a stone sky, and splashed up and down stairways that had softened and quickened into streams. He told her everything he knew, and what he thought about all of it, and happily invented a life and opinions for her, which she helped him do by listening. Nor was she deceiving him, for she truly remembered nothing before the castle and him. She began and ended with Prince Lear, except for the dreams, and they soon faded, as he said they would. They seldom heard the hunting roar of the Red Bull at night any more, but when the hungrier sounds came to her ears, then she would be frightened. and the walls and the winter would grow up around them again, as though their spring were all of her making, her joy's gift to the prince. He would have held her at such times, but he had long known of her dread of being touched. One afternoon, the Lady Amalthea stood on the highest tower of the castle, watching for Prince Lear's return from an expedition again, a brother-in-law of the ogre he had slain, for he still went out on occasional errantries, as he had told Molly he might. The sky was piled up over the valley of Hag's Gate, the color of dirty soap, but it was not raining. Far below, the sea slid out towards the smoky horizon in the hard bands of silver and green and kelpy brown. The ugly birds were restless. They flew out often, 2 and 3 together, circled swiftly over the water, and then returned to strut on the sand, chortling and cocking their heads as King Haggard's castle on the cliff. The tide was low and near to turning. The Lady Amalthea began to sing, and her voice balanced and hovered in the cold air like another sort of bird. I am a king's daughter, and I grow old within, the prison of my person, the shackles of my skin, and I would run away and beg from door to door. She did not remember having heard the song before, but the words pinched and plucked at her like children trying to drag her back to some place that they wanted to see again. She moved her shoulders to get away from them. But I am not old, she said to herself, and I am no prisoner. I'm the Lady Amalthea, beloved of Lear, who has come into my dreams so that I may not doubt myself even while I sleep. Where could I have learned a song of sorrow? I'm the Lady Amalthea, and I know only the songs that Prince Lear has taught me. She lifted a hand to touch the mark on her forehead. The sea wheeled by, calm as the zodiac, and the ugly birds screamed. It troubled her a little that the mark would not go away. Your Majesty, she said, though there had been no sound. She heard the rustling chuckle at her back, and turned to see the king. He wore a grey cloak over his mail, but his head was bare. The black lines on his face showed where his fingernails of old age had skidded down on the hard skin. But he looked stronger than his son, and wilder. You are quick for what you are, he said, but slow, I think, for what you were. It is said that love makes men swift and women slow. I will catch you at last if you love much more. She smiled at him without replying. She never knew what to say to the pale-eyed old man who she so rarely saw, except as a movement on the edge of solitude that she shared with Prince Lear. Then armor wrinkled deep in the valley, and she heard the scrape of a weary horse stumbling on stone. Your son is coming home, she said. Let us watch him together. King Haggard came slowly to stand beside her at the parapet, but he gave no more than a glance to the tiny, glinting figure riding home. Nay, what concern have you or I with Lear, truly? He asked. He's none of mine either by birth or belonging. I picked him up somewhere. Someone else had set him down. Thinking that I had never been happy and never had a son, it was pleasant enough at first, but it died quickly. All things die when I pick them up. I do not know why they die, but it has always been so. Save for the one dear possession that has not turned cold and dull as I guarded it, the only thing that has ever belonged to me. His grim face gave the sullen, starved leap of a sprung trap. And Lear will be no help to you in finding it, he said. He has never even known what it is. Without warning, the whole castle sang like a plucked string as the beast asleep at its root shifted his dire weight. The Lady Amalthea caught her balance easily, being well used to this, and said lightly, The Red Bull. But why do you think I have come to steal the bull? I have no kingdom to keep, and no wish for conquest. What would I do with him? How much does he eat? Do not mock me, the king answered. The Red Bull is no more mine than the boy is, and he does not eat, and he cannot be stolen. He serves anyone who has no fear, and I have no more fear than I have rest. Yet the Lady Amalthea saw foreboding sliding over the long, gray face, scuttling in the shadows of brows and bones. Do not mock me, he said. Why will you play that you have forgotten your quest, and that I am to remind you of it? I know what you have come for, and you know very well that I have it. Take it then, take it if you can, but do not dare to surrender now. The black wrinkles were all on edge, like knives. Prince Lear was singing as he rode. Though the Lady Amalthea could not hear the words, she said quietly to the king, My lord, in all your castle, in all your realm, in all the kingdoms that the Red Bull may bring you, there is only one thing that I desire. And you have just told me that he is not yours to give or to keep. Whatever it is you treasure that is not he, I truly wish you joy of it. Good day, Your Majesty. She moved towards the tower stairway, but he stood in her way, and she paused, looking at him with her eyes as dark as hoof prints in the snow. The Grey King smiled, and a strange kindness for him chilled her for an instant, for she suddenly fancied that they were somehow alike. But then he said, I know you. I almost knew you as soon as I saw you on the road, coming to my door with your cook and your clown. Since then, there is no movement of yours that has not betrayed you. A pace, a glance, a turn of the head, the flash of your throat as you breathe, even your way of standing perfectly still, they were all my spies. You have made me wonder for a little while, and in my own way I am grateful. But your time is done. He looked seaward over his shoulder and suddenly stepped to the parapet with the thoughtless grace of a young man. The tide is turning, he said. Come and see it. Come here. He spoke very softly, but his voice suddenly held the crying of the ugly birds on the shore. Come here, he said fiercely. Come, I won't touch you. Prince Lear sang, I will love you as long as I can, however long that may be. And then the horrible head on his saddle was harmonizing in a kind of bass falsetto. The Lady Amalthea went to stand with the king. The waves were coming in under the thick, swirling sky, growing as slowly as trees as they bulged across the sea. They crouched as they neared the shore, arching their backs higher and higher, and then sprang up the beach as furiously as trapped animals bounding at a wall and falling back with a sobbing snarl to leap again and again, claws caked and breaking, while the ugly birds yelled mournfully. The waves were gray and green as pigeons until they broke, and then they were the color of the hair that blew across her eyes. There, a strange, high voice said close to her. There they are. King Haggard was grinning at her and pointing down to the white water. There they are, he said, laughing like a frightened child. There they are. Say they are not your people. Say that you did not come here searching for them. Say now that you have stayed all winter in my castle for love. He could not wait for her answer, but turned away to look at the waves. His face was changed beyond believing, delight coloring the somber skin, rounding over the cheekbones, and loosening the bowstring mouth. They are mine, he said softly. They belong to me. The Red Bull gathered them for me, one at a time, and I bade him drive each one into the sea. What better place could there be to keep unicorns, and what other cage could hold them? For the bull keeps guard over them, awake or asleep, and he daunted their hearts long ago. Now they live in the sea, and every tide still carries them within an easy step of the land, but they dare not take that step. They dare not come out of the water. They are afraid of the Red Bull. Nearby, Prince Lear sang, Others may offer more than they can give, all that they have for as long as they live. The Lady Amalthea closed her hands on the parapet and wished for him to come to her, for she knew now that King Haggard was mad. Below them lay the thin, sallow beach, and the rocks and the rising tide, and nothing more. I like to watch them. They fill me with joy. The childish voice was all but singing. I am sure it is joy. The first time I felt it, I thought I was going to die. There were two of them. In the early morning shadows, one was drinking from a stream, and the other was resting her head on his back. I thought I was going to die. I said to the Red Bull, I must have that. I must have all of it, all there is, for my need is so very great. So the bull caught them. One by one, it was all the same to the bull. It would have been the same if I had demanded tumblebugs or crocodiles. He can only tell the difference between what I want and what I do not want. He had forgotten her for the moment as he leaned over the low wall, and she might have fled the tower then. But she stayed where she was, for an old bad dream was waking all around her, though it was daylight. The tide shattered on the rocks and tumbled together again, and Prince Lear rode along singing, But I will love you as long as I can, and never ask if you love me. I suppose I was young when I first saw them, King Haggard said. Now I must be old. At least I have picked many more things up than I had then, and put them all down again, but I always knew that nothing was worth the investment of my heart, because nothing lasts, and I was right. And so I was always old. Yet each time I see my unicorns, it is like the morning in that woods, and I am truly young in spite of myself. And anything can happen in a world that holds such beauty. In the dream, I looked down at four white legs and felt the earth under split hooves. There was a burning on my brow as there is now, but there were no unicorns coming in on the tide. The king is mad. He said, I wonder what will become of them when I am gone. The Red Bull will forget them immediately, I know, and be off to find a new master. But I wonder if they will take their freedom even then. I hope not, for then they will belong to me forever. Then he turned to look at her again, and his eyes were as gentle and greedy as Prince Lear's eyes became when he looked at her. You are the last, he said. The bull missed you because you were shaped like a woman, but I always knew. How did you manage the change, by the way? Your magician couldn't have done it. I don't think he could turn cream into butter. If she had let go of the parapet, she would have fallen, but she answered him quite calmly. My lord, I do not understand. I see nothing at all in the water. The king's face shivered, as though she were looking at him through fire. Do you still deny yourself? He whispered. Do you dare deny yourself? Nay, that's as false and cowardly as though you were truly human. I'll hurl you down to your folk with my own hands if you deny yourself. He took a step towards her, and she watched him with her eyes open, unable to move. The tumult of the sea filled her head, together with Prince Lear's singing and the blubbering death wail of a man named Ruck. King Haggard's grey face hung over her like a hammer, muttering, It must be so. I cannot be mistaken, yet her eyes are as stupid as his, as any eyes that ever saw unicorns. Never saw anything but themselves in a glass. What cheat is this? How can it be? There are no green leaves in her eyes now. Then she did close her eyes, but she shut in more than she kept out. The bronze-winged creature with a hag's face swung by, laughing and prattling, and the butterfly folded its wings to strike. The red bull moved silently through the forest, pushing the bare branches aside with his pale horns. She knew when King Haggard went away, but she did not open her eyes. It was long after, or only a little while later, but that she heard the magician's voice behind her. Be still, it's over. She had not known that she was making any sound. "In the sea," he said. "In the sea." "Well, don't feel too bad about it. I didn't see them either. Not this time or any other that I've stood here and watched the tide coming in. But he saw them, and if Haggard sees something, it's there." He laughed with a sound like an axe falling on wood. "Don't feel bad. This is a witch castle, and it's hard to look closely at things living here. It's not enough to be ready to see. You have to be looking all of the time." He laughed again, much more gently. "All right," he said. "We'll find them now. Come on, come with me." She turned to him, moving her mouth to make words, but no words came out. The magician was studying her face with his green eyes. "Your face is wet," he said worriedly. "I hope that's spray. If you've become human enough to cry, then no magic in the world. Oh, it must be spray. Come with me. It had better be spray." Oh my god, it's Fizz! Hi! Hello, cute. Aw, calling me cute? Adorable. Adorable, you think you can call me cute. I know how to accept a compliment with grace. Thank you very much. It's lovely to see you, my friend. Welcome in. And we just finished chapter 11. We have 12, 13, and 14 to go through, and then we're finished with the last unicorn. We have about 70 pages left. We are almost done with this book, and honestly, I think I'll be able to finish it if I go through it really fast, but I don't know that I'll be able to go through it super fast. That is a-okay. We'll see how far we can get. Let's see. I want to be the lava of your volcano, honey. Oh my goodness. Ah, you're coming in here with romance lines. It's okay, you missed the love song, sadness song earlier. A unicorn is in love with the prince right now, and she forgot she's a unicorn, so it's a little sad. He's absolutely smitten with her though. Poor Prince Lear. I've already read this book a million times, but I wonder how it's gonna end. Who knows? I guess we'll have to hope they get married, and it will be super cute that they'll have centaur children or something. I don't know. It's fine. I want to be the lava of your volcano, honey. Ah, don't worry. Hopefully you won't burn me with something that hot, you know? Just like me and you. Ooh, ooh, ooh. It's good to see you, my friend. Welcome, welcome in. Instead of a unicorn and a fish. Goodness, it's dragon and fish instead of unicorn and human. Does that mean I get turned into the fish, or does that mean you get turned into the dragon? Because right now she's human, and she forgot she's a unicorn. It's unfortunate. She has a name and stuff now, which is like usually really good, but she has a name, which is unfortunate. I am the fish. Yeah, so you're the fish. So does that mean if we're saying it's just like me and you, that I know you're a fish, but does that mean you get turned into a dragon, or does that mean I get turned into a fish? Because like I don't or we can just like just deal with it as it is, you know? Well, I believe in us. We can do this. We can handle things. 100%. We can make it work. Welcome in, my friend, though. It's so good to see you, dear. We're about to read chapter 12. I do desperately need some hydration, though, if you'll allow me a moment to go ahead and get some. Goodness. Donkey can do it on Shrek. I can do it too. Unfortunately, friend, I don't have the parts for that. Thank you, though. I have robot parts. And like by that I mean like picture like a Barbie doll. That's it. It's about it. Doesn't mean we can't make it work though, my dear. I wouldn't be opposed. I can see a face to smooch. Ah, I can do smooches. I can do smooches and cuddles. I'm great at cuddles. I'm warm and I'm a comfy big spoon. So we'll go with that. I do want to go ahead and see how much more of this we can
read because I'd like to do another chapter. So let's go ahead and big spoon. Yeah, I can be giant spoon, like absolutely massive spoon. Yeah, I love being little spoon. Perfect. That's great then. This works perfectly. Okay, let me grab another sip of water and we'll move on to chapter 12 because there's only 14 chapters in this book. It's not remarkably long. Ah, ooh. And we started at chapter 8 today, so we've been through 8. Chapter 9 was super, super long. 10 and 11, so we've done 4 chapters tonight, which is really good. Yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. 1 second. I gotta find the spot. Oh, and, I did. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, we are. Okay. Wait a second. Fizz redeemed everything. It's a lot of chapters. It's 14 chapters. It's the version I have it is 294 pages. But yeah, gosh dang it, that's a lot of chapters. And guess what? I can actually curse now again. Woohoo! Let's go. Um gosh. I definitely needed that stretch. Goodness. I how much water should I be drinking? How many waters should I be I already have like how much is this? I've gone through a bottle. Let me clarify so you guys know that I've been doing a good job. Um I started off stream with a very full bottle of water. And mind you, I don't say bottle of water like, oh, this is like half liter, like an ounce. No, it's a liter and a half. It's empty now. Or it's about to be with how many drinks I must consume. Um, 14 chapters, 14 hydrates. Yeah, it's 1.53 liters. So like this is a lot of water. It's a lot of water for me. Goodness gracious. It is a lot of chapters. We've gone through 4 tonight. And rest your voice. You did a lot of reading. I want to read one more. We'll rest. I can go ahead and see the Here's the thing. When I usually talk to people, I talk in a higher register. If I'm resting my voice drops. Like a lot. Like a decent amount. I could definitely talk lower. Let's see, I get myself 1.5 liters of energy drink easily. That's a different story. That's a different story. But if like I'm resting my voice a little bit, I talk lower more naturally. But like if I'm entertaining people and I want to be more animated in my voice, you talk closer to the front of your mouth and you have a higher voice. Um, it's it's part of the NB charm. It's part of the fun, dear. So, yeah, we could do low voice, but I don't know how well that's gonna go for Molly because we've decided Ms. Molly Grew has a higher voice, and the unicorn I have to differentiate her from the king somehow, because I gave them the same voice pattern. Your low voice, uh, daddy, sorry. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's fine. There's a reason Flute refers to me as Dragon Daddy. Um, this is reason. Usually, especially if she sits there and is like being an idiot, because we're close IRL too. If she sits there and is being an idiot, I just kind of sit there and I'm like, "Are you sure you want to try that again?" And she's like, "Nope, never mind." Immediately, except it's more like she just goes no, and she she like her voice kind of cracks a little bit. And it's really funny. But yeah, it's part of the fun goobery goofy weird register that my voice is in. It's fun. Let me actually get some proper water because I'm resting my voice. Nah, chatting.
How is the bird song, by the way? I'm hoping it's been comfortable while we've been reading. I know it's something that for me is it's very relaxing. It's very calming. I like birdsong. It's one of those ambient sound effects that I love to listen to while I am like winding down for the day. Kind of kind of chilling, definitely relaxing a bit more. It's super nice. Let's see. XDDDDDD. Oh, just 3 days. XDDD. If I told you. Oh no, if you told me all of the above? Question mark, question mark. All of the above? Ugh. How much I hate them birds. Do we need to switch? We could do fireplace sounds. I could turn them down. It's just I live in the mountains. It's mountain birds. No, no. Okay. Okay. I was like, I hope this isn't and the bird song is terrible. Oh, I have a tree next to my window that'll do that. We can make them Australian bird sounds. What, just like wild screeching, blow your eardrums out type of sounds? You got Laffy Bird MP? What the F is a Laffy Bird? What is a Laffy Bird? Am I spelling that wrong? And I've got parrots and birds in general. Oh, I see. I mean, there's the laughing kookaburras. Is that what it is? Oh, it is. It is. It's in the kingfisher subfamily. Okay. What does their what do they sound like? What do they sound like? One second. We're doing a listening. I'm concerned. Oh my god. What is that? I hear this every morning and evening. Oh my god. It's like cicadas in the summer. Like oh god. Oh god. I hear them and I've never heard that before. Oh my goodness gracious. Golly jeepers. Gosh, that that was wild. Oh goodness. No. Let's move back to our regularly scheduled bird programming. Yeah, no, that sounds miserable. They go for a few minutes. Ew, that does not sound pleasant in the slightest. Um, let's see. Grabbing the book, and we're gonna do one more chapter tonight. At least, and then we'll be almost done with the book, because I don't think I can get through 70 pages before I get too EP. Yeah. Another one of note are magpies when they sing. Yeah, we have magpies over where I am too. So we get magpies as well. Moving on to chapter 12 again. Let's tune back in. Gonna kind of like circle back, zone in for a moment. Okay. Okay. In the great hall of King Haggard's castle, the clock struck 6. Actually, it was 11 minutes past midnight, but the hall was a little darker than it had been at 6 o'clock, or at noon. Yet those who lived in the castle told time by the difference in the dark. There were hours when the hall was cold simply for want of warmth, and gloomy for lack of light, when the air was stale and still, and the stones stank of old water because there was no windows to let in the scouring wind. That was daytime. But at night, as some trees hold a living light all day, hold it with the undersides of their leaves until long after sundown, so at night the castle was charged and swarming with darkness, alive with the darkness. Then the great hall was cold for a reason. Then the small sounds that slept by day woke up to patter and scratch in the corners. It was night when the old smell of the stones seemed to rise from far below the floor. Light a light, Molly Grew said. Please, can you make a light? Schmendrick muttered something curt and professional. For a moment, nothing happened, but then a strange, sallow brightness began to spread over the floor, scattering itself about the room in 1,000 scurrying shards that shone and squeaked. That little night, beasts of the castle were glowing like fireflies. They darted here and there in the hall, raising swift shadows with their sickly light and making the darkness even colder than before. I wish you hadn't done that, Molly said. Can you turn them off again? The purple ones, anyways. With the legs, I guess. No, I can't, Schmendrick answered crossly. Be quiet. Where's the skull? The Lady Amalthea could see it grinning from a pillar, lemon small in the shadows and dim as the morning moon, but she said nothing. She had not spoken since she came down from the tower. There, the magician said. He strode to the skull and peered into its split and crumbling eye sockets for a long time, nodding slowly and making solemn sounds to himself. Molly Grew stared with equal earnestness, but she glanced often at the Lady Amalthea. At last, Schmendrick said, All right, don't stand so close. Are there really spells to make a skull speak? Molly asked. The magician stretched out his finger and gave her a small, competent smile. There are spells to make everything speak. The master wizards were great listeners, and they devised ways to charm all things of the world, living and dead, into talking to them. That is most of it, being a wizard, seeing and listening. He drew a long breath suddenly, looking away and rubbing his hands together. The rest is technique, he said. Well, here we go. Abruptly, he turned to face the skull, put one hand lightly on the pale crown, and addressed it in a deep, commanding voice. The words marched out of his mouth like soldiers, their steps echoing with power as they crossed the dark air. But the skull made no answer at all. I just wondered, the magician said softly. He lifted his hand from the skull and spoke to it again. This time, the sound of the spell was reasonable and, almost plaintive. The skull remained silent, but it seemed to Molly that a wakefulness slipped across the faceless front and was gone again. In the scuttling light of the radiant vermin, the Lady Amalthea's hair shone like a flower, appearing neither interested nor indifferent, but quiet in the way that a battlefield is sometimes quiet. She watched as Schmendrick recited one incantation after another to a desert-colored knob of bone that spoke not one word more than she did. Each charm was uttered in a more despairing tone than the last, but the skull would not speak. And yet Molly Grew was certain that it was aware and listening, and amused. She knew the silence of mockery too well to mistake it for death. Oh, hi, Jesse. Good to see you back in for a little bit. Let's see. I have a feeling they don't sound as nice as ours. No, they're probably not. It's EP time for me, so I'm a bounce. Thank you for reading the book that inspired the movie. I've freaking adored as a small one. Yeah. No, it's so good. We're hopefully gonna be reading it as a community night thing sometime soon. I'll be sure to go ahead and update people about that online. So you'll see me post about it either in the Discord when we decide to do it, or I'll go ahead and post it on my socials as well. So we can get people in and go ahead and have a good time to hang out and watch a good film that is inspired by a very beautifully written book. And then we'll, of course, go ahead and decide on another book to read. I have a few options already. We can go sci-fi, or we can keep going fantasy. Or we could go like romancy. That would be fine too, but I'm not great at romance stuff. But we'll figure it out, I'm sure. But thank you for checking in, Jesse. Have yourself a good night. Keep me posted on anything you need for your model, please. I'd love to be a good model father. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Choo-choo-doo-choo-doo. Where did we go? Oh yes, the skull is making fun of Schmendrick. Or at least Molly's pretty sure it is. Okay. Uh Ugh. Goodness, for so much water. Um Yeah, still needed to clear my throat. The clock struck 29. At least, it was at that point that Molly lost count. The rusty strokes were still clanking to the floor when Schmendrick suddenly shook both fists at the skull and shouted, all right for you, you pretentious kneecap. How would you like a punch in the eye? On the last words, his voice unraveled completely into a snarl of misery and rage. That's right, the skull said. Yell, wake up, old haggard. Its own voice sounded like branches creaking and knocking together in the wind. Should we give this guy a Valley Girl accent? I think that'd be rather funny. I think it might be funny. I haven't decided on all of the voice I've given. Some people I did. Um I think this guy might need to be a funny American Valley Girl. I think that would be amusing. Yell louder, it said. The old man's probably around here somewhere. He doesn't sleep much. I hate it. Never mind. I hate it. Oh. I liked the idea until I had to do it, and then I just busted up laughing. I'm gonna be lucky if I get through this chapter if we give him that voice. Okay, I'll keep it because that is funny. Oh, that makes me laugh. Goodness. Okay. Molly gave a small cry of delight. Me too, Molly. And even the Lady Amalthea moved a step nearer. Schmendrick stood with his fist shut and no triumph in his face. The skull said, Come on, ask me how to find the Red Bull. You can't go wrong asking my advice. I'm the king's watchman, set to guard the way to the bull. Even Prince Lear doesn't know the secret way, but I do. A little timidly, Molly Grew asked, If you are truly on guard here, why don't you give the alarm? Why do you offer to help us instead of summoning the men-at-arms? The skull gave a rattling chuckle. I've been up on this pillar for a long time, it said. I was Haggard's chief henchman once until he snowed off my head for no reason. That was back in the days when he was being wicked to see if that was what he really liked to do. It wasn't, but he thought he might as well get some use out of my head. So he stuck it up here to serve as his sentinel. Under the circumstances, I'm not as loyal to King Haggard as I might be. Schmendrick spoke in a low tone. Answer the riddle, then. Tell us the way to the Red Bull. No, said the skull. Then it laughed like mad. Hi, Nimble. Hi, Nimble. We're reading right now. I may have given someone, a terrible voice. I get. Thank you so much. Oh gosh, look what I got. Yeah, 2 months. Let's actually move this so that way we can see alerts. Hi Nimble, how are you? I saw you were streaming earlier. How did that go? I hope it went really well for you. Yeah, we've been reading and you came in right when I gave a talking skull a terrible Valley Girl accent. So, it's great. You came in just in time, my friend. Welcome though. We're having a relaxing stream. Oh gosh, where There we go. That's where I was reading. Okay. I hope stream went well for you though. You were playing like a multiplayer game with some people. 3 words and then no. What? Like no? How are the 3 words and then no? What? I did 2 streams today, Fortnite and Headliners. Oh, I saw you were doing Headliners earlier. Yeah, I haven't touched that one, but it's really good. With the accent, 3 words and then no. Yeah, I know. Oh, I understand. 3 words in, then no. I missed the comma when I was reading that. Listen, my voice acting is a thing to see too. Oh goodness, it's fun. Especially since I've been reading in like my normal cadence for a while. But then they were like, rest your voice, and they were introduced to Deep Voice Nova. So they got this. This is like my comfy range. But when I want to be animated, it's easier for me to be animated further towards the front of my mouth, so I talk higher. Yeah, it's fun. You could always do the classic do the Skeletor voice. No! No, 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 no! No, 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 no! Oh my god, no. Oh, goodness. That's funny. I could do Skeletor, but in a Valley Girl accent. I can't. Because he's got, like, almost like a transatlantic accent. Not quite, but it's very, very 80s trying to be Skeletor. It's very, very 80s villain. It's very iconic. I could never. Oh god, where am I again? Okay. Page 229. Nice, nice. Yeah, but I'm glad you had a fun time doing headliners with people. It looked fun when I checked in for like a second before I was like, oh shoot, my stream starts in 5 minutes. I gotta go. Okay. Um, I'm gonna stop getting distracted. Cough, cough. Moving onwards to this next part. No, said the skull, and then it laughed like mad. Why not? Molly cried furiously. What kind of a game? The skull's long yellow jaws never moved, but it was some time before the mean laughter chattered to a halt. Even the hurrying night things passed for a moment, stranded in their candy lights, until it stopped. I'm sorry. I just checked over at chat. And Kit just said, oh my god, He-Man, look at these nails. They look so good. Oh, goodness. It's always good seeing you. Ah, yeah, no, it's so good seeing you. We need to do something again sometime. I would love to spend time with you again. Oh gosh. Sorry. I was just gonna say, Kit's comment made me think like, oh my god, that's funny, I'm dead. And I turned the page, and the next thing the skull says is, I'm dead. So Valley Girl, yeah, take 1d4 psychological damage. I need like 2d4 psych damage at least. We need 2d4 psychological damage for sure. Um, moving forward, 100%. Yes, we do. 100%. Let me move forward and try to get through this chapter. How many pages do we have? There's no way we can get through this chapter. It's long, unless we take forever. Not gonna finish the book tonight, but we will sure as hell try. Starting up again. I'm dead, said the skull. I'm dead, and I'm hanging in the dark watching over Haggard's property. The only small amusement I have is to irk and exasperate the living, and I don't get much chance of that. It's a sad loss, because in life, mine was a particularly exasperating nature. You'll pardon me, I'm sure, if I indulge myself with you a little. Try me tomorrow. Maybe I'll tell you tomorrow. But we have no time, Molly pleaded. Schmendrick nudged her, but she rushed on, stepping close to the skull and appealing directly to its uninhabited eyes. We have no time. We may be too late now. I have time, the skull replied reflectively. It's really not so good to have time. Rush, scramble, desperation, this missed, that left behind, those others too big to fit into such small spaces. That's the way life was meant to be. You're supposed to be too late for some things. Don't worry about it. Molly would have entered further, but the magician gripped her arm and pulled her aside. Be still, he said in a swift, fierce voice. Not a word, not another word. The damned thing spoke, didn't it? Maybe that's all the riddle requires. It isn't, the skull informed him. I'll talk as much as you like, but I won't tell you anything. That's pretty rotten, isn't it? You should have seen me when I was alive. Schmendrick paid no attention. Where's the wine? He demanded of Molly. Let me see what I can do with the wine. I couldn't find any, she said nervously. I looked everywhere, but I don't think there's a drop in the castle. The magician glared at her in vast silence. I looked, she said. Schmendrick raised both arms slowly and let them fall to his sides. Well, he said, well, that's it then. If we can't make the wine, I have my illusions, but I can't make wine out of thin air. The skull giggled in a cackling, talky way. Matter can neither be created nor destroyed, it remarked, not by most magicians, anyway. From a fold of her dress, Molly procured a small flask that gleamed faintly in the darkness. She said, I thought if you had some water to start with. Schmendrick and the skull gave her very much the same look. Well, it's been done. she said loudly. It's not as though you'd have to make up something new. I'd never ask you of that. Hearing herself, she looked sideways at the Lady Amalthea, but Schmendrick took the flask from her hand and studied it thoughtfully, turning it over and murmuring curious, fragile words to himself. Finally, he said, Why not? As you say, it's a standard trick. There was quite a vogue for it at one time, I remember, but it's really a bit dated these days. He moved one hand slowly over the flask, weaving a word into the air. What are you doing? The skull asked eagerly. Hey, do it closer. Do it over here. I can't. Oh my god, Talon, hi. The best is Nova fan. Yes, you are absolutely wonderful. Good to see you again. Thank you so much for the 2 months. That's amazing. Hey, check this. I learned this spell on the Bible. Basically, he's old enough for it because this man hasn't aged since he was cursed by Nikos, which, mind you, is a Greek name. So yeah. Let's go ahead. Where did I say that? Before I got distracted. There we go. Okay, found it. I found where I was. Hey, do it closer. Do it over here. I can't see a thing. The magician turned away, holding the flask to his breast and bowing over it. He began a whispery chant that made Molly think of the sounds that a dead fire continues to make, long after the last coal had faded. You understand, he said, interrupting himself. It won't be anything special. Vino de nerf, if that. Molly nodded solemnly. Schmendrick said, and it's usually too sweet, and how I'm supposed to get it up to drink itself, I haven't the faintest idea. He took up the incantation again, even more softly. While the skull complaining bitterly that it couldn't see or hear anything, Molly said something quite hopeful to the Lady Amalthea, who neither looked at her nor replied. The chant stopped abruptly, and Schmendrick raised the flask to his lips. Whoa, lips? Lisps my butt. Goodness. That was a terrible mix-up on my part. So sorry. He sniffed at first, muttering, weak, hardly any bouquet at all. Nobody ever made good wine by magic. Then he tilted it to drink, and then shook it, and then stared at it, and then, with a small, horrible smile, turned it over. Nothing ran out. Nothing at all. That's done it, Schmendrick said, almost cheerfully. He touched a dry tongue to his dry lips and repeated, That's done it. That's finally done it. Still smiling, he lifted the flask again to hurl it across the hall. No, wait, hey, don't! The skull's clattering voice protested so wildly that Schmendrick halted before the flask left his hand. He and Molly turned together to regard the skull, which, so great was its anguish, had actually begun to wriggle where it hung, cracking its weathered What is that word? Occiput? I don't know how to pronounce that, actually. I don't know what that is. It's I know what it is, but I don't know how to pronounce it. It's the stand that you mount skulls on specifically, or like heads of beasts that you've hunted. I don't know how to pronounce it actually. Okay, but the skull began to wriggle where it hung, cracking that hard against the pillar as it strove to free itself. Don't do that, it wailed. You people must be crazy. Throwing away wine like that, give it to me if you don't want it. But don't throw it away. It rocked and lurched on the pillar, whimpering. A dreamy, wondering look crossed Schmendrick's face, rather like a rain cloud drifting over dry country. Slowly, he asked, And what use have you for wine? With no tongue to taste it, no ribby palate to savor it, no gullet to gulp it down. 50 years dead. Can it be that you still remember, still desire? 50 years dead, what else can I do? The skull had ceased its grotesque twitching, but frustration had made its voice almost human. I remember, it said. I remember more than wine. Give me a swallow, that's all. Give me a sip, and I'll taste it, as you never will. With all your runny flesh, all your buds and organs, I've had time to think. I know what wine is like. Give it to me. Schmendrick shook his head, grinning. He said, Eloquent, but I've been feeling a bit spiteful myself lately. For a third time, he lifted the empty flask, and the skull groaned in mortal misery. Out of pity, Molly Grew began to say, But it isn't. But the magician stepped on her foot. Of course, he mused aloud. If you should happen to remember the entrance to the Red Bull's cavern as well as you remember wine, we might bargain yet. He twiddled the flask casually between two fingers. Done, the skull cried instantly. Done for a dram, but give it to me now. I'm more thirsty with thinking of wine than ever I was in life, when I had a throat to be dry. Only give me a single swig now, and I'll tell you anything you want to know. The rusted jaws were beginning to grind sideways on each other. The skull's slaty teeth were more trembling and splitting. Give it to him, Molly whispered to Schmendrick. She was terrified to the naked eye sockets, might start to fill up with tears, but Schmendrick shook his head again. I will give it all to you, he said to the skull, after you tell us how we may fate the Red Bull. The skull sighed, but never hesitated. The way is through the clock, it said. You simply walk through the clock and there you are. Now can I have the wine? Through the clock? The magician turned to peer into a far corner of the great hall, where the clock stood. It was tall and black and thin, the sundown shadow of a clock. The glass over its face was broken, and the hour hand was gone. Behind gray glass, the works could barely be seen, twitching and turning as fretfully as fish. Schmendrick said, You mean when the clock strikes the right time, it opens, and then there is a tunnel, a hidden stair. His voice was doubtful, for the clock seemed far too lean to conceal any such passageway. I don't know anything about that, the skull replied. If you wait for this clock to strike the hour, you'll be here till you're as bald as I am. Why complicate a simple secret? You walk through the clock and the Red Bull is on the other side. Gimme. But the cat said, Schmendrick began. Then he turned and walked towards the clock. The darkness made him seem to be going away down a hill, growing small and stooped. When he reached the clock, he kept walking without pause, as though it were truly no more than a shadow. But he bumped his nose. This is stupid, he said coldly to the skull as he returned. How do you think to cheat us? The way to the bull may well lead through the clock, but there is something more to know. Tell me, or I will spill the wine out on the floor for you to remember the smell and look of it as much as you choose. Oh, be quick. But the skull was laughing again, this time making a thoughtful, almost kindly noise. Remember what I told you about time, it said. When I was alive, I believed, as you do, that time was at least as real and solid as myself, and probably more so. I said 1 o'clock as though I could see it, and Monday as though I could find it on a map, and I let myself be hurried along from minute to minute, day to day, year to year, as though I were actually moving from one place to another. Like everyone else, I lived in a house, bricked up with seconds and minutes, weekends and New Year's days, and I never went outside until I died, because there was no other door. Now, I know that I could have walked through the walls. Molly blinked bewilderedly, but Schmendrick was nodding. Yes, he said, that's how the real magicians do it. But then the clock. The clock will never strike the right time, the skull said. Haggard scrambled the works long ago, one day when he was trying to grab hold of time as it swung by. But the important thing is for you to understand that it doesn't matter whether the clock strikes 10 next, or 7, or 15 o'clock. You can strike your own time and start the count anywhere. When you understand that, then any time at all will be the right time for you. At that moment, the clock struck 4. The last bang had not yet faded when there came an answering sound from beneath the great hall. Neither a bellow nor the savage grumble that the Red Bull often made when he dreamed. It was a low, inquiring sound, as though the bull had awakened sensing something new in the night. Every flagstone buzzed like a snake, and the darkness itself seemed to shudder as the glowing night creatures scampered wildly to the edges of the hall. Molly knew, suddenly and surely, that King Haggard was near. "Give me the wine," the skull said. "I have kept my part of the bargain." Silently, Schmendrick tipped the empty flask to the empty mouth, and the skull gurgled and sighed and smacked. "Ah," it said at last. "Ah, that was the real stuff. That was wine. You're more of a magician than I took you for. Do you understand me now about time?" "Yes," Schmendrick answered. "I think so." The red bull made his curious sound again, and the skull rattled against the pillar. Schmendrick said, "No, I don't know. Is there another way?" "How can there be?" Molly heard footsteps, and then nothing. Then the thin, cautious ebb and flow of breathing. She could not tell where it came from. Schmendrick turned to her, and his face seemed to be smudged from within like the inside of a lantern glass, with fear and confusion. There was a light, too, but it shook like a lantern in the storm. "I think I understand," he said, "but I'm sure I don't. I'll try." "I still don't think it's a real clock," Molly said. "That's all right, though. I can walk through a real clock." She spoke partly to confront him, but she felt a brightness in her own body as she realized that what she had said was true. "I know where we have to go," she said, "and that's as good as knowing the time any day." "Oh, Kenyo! Hi! Up way late, but hi, cutie. Hi there, darling. How are you doing today, my dear? It's wonderful to see you." You actually are up late. You're usually way asleep by now, but it's so nice to see you. Welcome in. We're reading The Last Unicorn right now. Glad to go ahead and have you in for a moment at least. Hi, I don't know if you were streaming earlier. How have you been? It's been a hot minute. But good to see you again. Let me go ahead and try remembering what paragraph I was in. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Goodness, I was not lol been at work. Oh, well, I hope work has gone well for you, dear. Definitely super important that you're taking care of yourself, especially if you're not at work anymore. Get plenty of rest. It is rather late for you, because I know you're in my local time zone here. So, or at least close enough that I know you're not crazy far away. It is late for you. Please go ahead and make sure you take care of yourself and you get plenty of rest. Especially if you've been working. Gosh, yeah, get to fall asleep to a beautiful voice. Well, we're reading a fantasy book right now, and we are dealing with a crazy, annoying drunkard skeleton that we decided to give a Valley Girl voice. So it's been a party. Okay. Talking about Molly in this instance. "I know where we have to go," she said, "and that's as good as knowing the time any day." The skull interrupted her. It said, "I'll give you a bit of advice in the bargain because the wine was so good." Schmendrick looked guilty. The skull said, "Smash me. Just knock me to the floor and let me break in pieces. Don't ask why. Just do it." It was speaking very quickly, almost whispering. Together, Schmendrick and Molly said, "What? Why?" The skull repeated its request. Schmendrick demanded, "What are you saying? Why on earth should we break you?" "Do it," the skull insisted. "Do it." The sound of breath came nearer from all directions, though only on one pair of feet. "No," Schmendrick said, "you're crazy." He turned his back and started a second time towards the gaunt, dark clock. Molly took the Lady Amalthea by her cold hand and followed him, trailing the white girl like a kite. "All right," the skull said sadly. "I warned you." In a terrible voice, a voice like hail on iron, it began at once to cry, "Help ho! The king guards to me! Here are burglars, bandits, moss droppers, kidnappers, housebreakers, murderers, character assassins, plagiarists! King Haggard! Oh, King Haggard!" Now over their heads, and all around them, feet came clattering, and they heard the whistling voices of the aged men-at-arms calling as they ran. No torches flared, for no light could be struck in the castle unless the king himself ordered it, and Haggard was yet silent. The three thieves stood confounded and undone, gaping helplessly at the skull. "I'm sorry," it said. "I'm just like that, treacherous. But I did try." Then it vanished. Eyes suddenly saw the Lady Amalthea, and they went wide and bright, although they could not have. Oh no, it said softly. No, you don't. I'm disloyal, but I'm not that disloyal. Run, Schmendrick said, as he had said it long ago to the wild sea-white legend that he had just set free. They fled across the great hall, while the men-at-arms blundered loudly in the dark, and the skull shrieked, "Unicorn! Unicorn! Haggard, Haggard, there she goes, down to the Red Bull. Mind the clock, Haggard, where are you?" And then the king's voice, rustling savagely under this uproar. "Fool! Traitor, it was you who told her." His quick, secret footsteps sounded close by, and Schmendrick set himself to turn and fight. But there came a grunt, and a crack, and a scraping noise, and then the bouncing crunch of an old bone on old stone. The magician ran on. When they stood before the clock, there was little grace either for doubting or understanding. The men-at-arms were in the hall now, and their clashing steps sent echoes booming back and forth between the walls, while King Haggard hissed and cursed them on. The Lady Amalthea never hesitated. She entered the clock and vanished as the moon passes behind clouds, hidden by them but not in them, thousands of miles alone. As though she were a dryad, Molly thought madly, and time was her tree. Through the dim, speckled glass, Molly could see the weights and the pendulum and the cankered chimes all swaying and burning as she stared. There was no door beyond, though which the Lady Amalthea might have gone. There was only the rusty avenue of the works, leading her eyes away into rain. The weights drifted from side to side like seaweed. King Haggard was shouting, "Stop them! Smash the clock!" Molly started to turn her head, meaning to tell Schmendrick that she thought she knew what the skull had meant, but the magician had disappeared, and so had the great hall of King Haggard. The clock was gone too, and she was standing beside the Lady Amalthea in a cold place. The king's voice came to her from very far away, not so much heard as remembered. She went on, turning her head, and found herself looking into the face of Prince Lear. Behind him there fell a bright mist, shivering like the sides of a fish, and bearing no resemblance at all to corroded clockwork. Schmendrick was nowhere to be seen. Prince Lear bent his head gravely to Molly, but it was to the Lady Amalthea that he spoke first. "And you would have gone without me," he said. "You haven't been listening at all." She answered him then, when she had not spoken to Molly or the magician. In a low, clear voice, she said, "I would have come back. I do not know why I am here, or who I am, but I would have come back." "No," said the prince, "you would never have come back." Before he could say anything more, Molly broke in, much to her own surprise, crying, "Never mind all that. Where's Schmendrick?" The two strangers looked at her in courteous wonder that anyone else in the world should be able to speak, and she felt herself shaken once from head to heels. "Where is he?" she demanded. "I'll go back myself if you won't." As she turned around again, he came out of the mist, walking with his head down, as though he were leaning against a strong wind. He was holding a hand to his temple, and when he took it away, the blood came softly down. "It's all right," he said, when he saw that the blood was falling on Molly Grew's hands. "It's all right. It's not deep. I couldn't get through until it happened." He bowed shakily to Prince Lear. "I thought it was you who went by me in the dark," he said. "Tell me, how did you pass through the clock so easily? The skull said you didn't know the way." The prince looked puzzled. "What way?" he asked. "What was there to know? I saw where she had gone, and I followed." Schmendrick suddenly laugh. Oh, sorry. Schmendrick's sudden laugh rubbed itself raw against the snaggy walls that came swimming on them as their eyes grew familiar with this new darkness. "Of course," he said. "Some things have their own time by nature." He laughed again, shaking his head, and the blood flew. Molly tore a piece of her dress. "Those poor old men," the magician said. "They didn't want to hurt me, and I wouldn't have hurt them if I could. We dodged around and around, apologizing to each other, and Haggard was yelling, and I kept bumping into the clock. I knew that it wasn't a real clock, but it felt real, and I was worried about it. Then Haggard came up with a sword and hit me. He closed his eyes as Molly bowed his head. Haggard, he said, I was getting to like him. I still do. He looked so frightened. The dim, removed voices of the king and his men seemed to be growing louder. I don't understand, Prince Lear said. Why was he frightened? My father. What did he... But just then, from the far side of the clock, they heard a wordless squall of triumph and the beginning of a great crash. The shimmering haze vanished immediately, and black silence caved in on them all. Haggard has destroyed the clock, Schmendrick said presently. Now there's no way back, and no way out but the bull's way. A slow, thick wind began to wake. Oh, golly. We made it through to chapter 13. We've got 2 more chapters. Oh gosh, we can go ahead and get this done. Probably not tonight, but at the very least, we're definitely going to be finishing this up soon. Hopefully we'll go ahead and have time for it another day. We do still have some fun, upbeat stuff to do upcoming in the next week. I have a wonderful stream on Friday with some fantastic friends. Kenyo is one of them. We're going to be doing some like some modded repo. So it's going to be super fun. We're also going to go ahead and be doing hopefully a little bit of Broken Age come this Saturday for me. Taking off, yeah, we got to go ahead and call it a night. I've been live for just over 3.5 hours. We got that challenge with Zen. Yeah, I had stream plans before Zen mentioned that he finished that Minecraft challenge. So we're booking it for a few weeks out. Your voice is soothing, lulling me to sleep. Maybe I should have been like some type of like sleep demon, like lulling people to sleep, but I prefer the whole dragon thing, you know, never wake a sleeping dragon and all. It definitely rolls off the tongue when you're, you know, just talking to people, sleeping with people and cozying up to something warm that will protect you. Always great. I already did full sleep several times. That is true. Oh, goodness. No, well, we'll definitely go ahead and finish up this book next time. I want to go ahead and also push forward some book recommendations. So I'll be asking for those on my Discord. I'll be asking for those on like my socials as well, for Twitter and things like that. Of course, we're gonna try and keep it at least PG-13, so nothing raunchy. We gotta keep TOS. But we can do like cute romancy stuff at the very least. I would love to go ahead and do something fun sci-fi, but most of the sci-fi books I have, the sci-fi books, wow, I can talk. The sci-fi books I own are massive. Like, they're hundreds and hundreds of pages long, and they're really in-depth sci-fi stuff. Oh, actually, good idea. Maybe we could go ahead and work on Project Hail Mary, or even on The Martian. Those are really fun books, and Project Hail Mary has a movie coming out soon. Ryan Gosling is actually in it. I think he's playing, like, the main character. And I've never read the book myself, though I know the general gist about it. So we'll go ahead and do that. It'll be so much fun. Let's see, however, today, if we can raid anyone else. I'd love to go ahead and see if any of my mutuals are live. I don't have any mutuals live tonight. Let's see. Let's see if we have any recommendations right now. I'm trying to see if I can find anybody. I'm not seeing anyone right now. But at the very least, we'll go ahead and call it a night tonight, and we won't go ahead and worry too much about a raid this evening. Especially since we are just reading a book. It's hard to go ahead and find someone in a similar vein or category to transfer and transition to. Outside of that, though, please go ahead and we'll let you guys get back to the rest of your days, the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for coming in as well. It was lovely to go ahead and see friends, and I'm so excited to go ahead and see more people. Hug, have a good night, dude. Aw, thank you so much. Have a good night yourself, too. I need a hug emote, actually. That'll be lovely. I've got, like, my wave emote, but we need a hug. We need a hug and we need a head pat. I'll get on that right away. Outside of that, though, please, everyone, take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for stopping into the Bocord. Make sure you go ahead and don't leave the library with any books unless you've checked them out. Of course, go ahead and take care of yourself. Keep yourself happy, healthy, and hydrated, and all of that wonderful stuff. Enjoy your evening, enjoy your morning, enjoy your day and your night, and I'll see you guys another time soon. Bye!